Good evening. It's our April 18th City Council meeting. Welcome, everybody. We'll do call to order. Oh, yeah, first, just a minute. We have first thing on our agenda was your comments.
Right after you calling the meeting to order, at what time is
Oh,
it? Sorry.
6:41.
My apologies for it.
But we call the order roll call, please.
I will do my comments first if you
Yes.
don't mind. Okay.
I did call the order, yeah.
Honorable Mayor, councilors, audience members here, and those who may view this meeting hereafter. I want to offer just a few comments regarding my role at the March 21st council meeting. Thank you for allowing me to do so. Like many, I was stunned by what occurred at that meeting. It was not what I had seen out of council or audience members here in Orinoco before. Thereafter, however, I was disenchanted by my own actions. I've been the lead across public, private, and nonprofit sectors for years and pride myself in specific areas of governance and protocol. That said, I know full well that a resignation by any elected official in the public sector must be accomplished in writing with specific criteria. I know too that any declaration of vacancy in the seat must be done by resolution. Knowing these things, I failed to act appropriately, and I apologize. To be clear, no resignation letter was received at City Hall. Therefore, no vacancy was created, despite my having recommended to the mayor that a vacancy should be declared. Again, specifically to you, Mayor Ikorst, I apologize. And with no resignation received, Councilor Kraus is here tonight and going forward as a duly elected member of the Orinoco City Council. Finally, it is my hope that the March 21st council meeting becomes an anomaly and we can all move forward to accomplish great and exciting things in and for the city of Orinoco. As someone I admire suggested in a conversation with me today, let's show each other some grace. Thank you.
Thank you, Say. Appreciate your comments. With that, we'll have a roll call
Mayor Ikorst,
here.
Councilor Bergner. Here. Acting Mayor Phillips.
Here.
Councilor Richards.
Here.
Councilor Kraus.
Here.
Thank you.
They have approval for our agenda tonight.
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Seeing no changes, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That's approved. Next item is our public forum. It's a 3-minute time limit. The City Council welcomes and encourages participation from community members. Please keep in mind that your comments must be pertinent to city business and must adhere to data privacy rules. No employees' names may be used. Please do not expect action from the council this evening regarding your concerns. To address the City Council during public forum, please step up to the podium, state your name, address, and fill out the form that's provided on the podium. And speakers will be recognized only once. So with that, if anybody would like to speak at a public forum, please step forward to the podium.
Hi, I'm Annie. I provided my address last time.
Would you state it? What?
I'm in, what's that?
Speak your address, please.
I'd rather not share my address for reasons that I'll probably explain here a little bit more. I live here in Orinoco River Park. Fine, 475 River Park Road, Southeast.
Thank you.
So Sunny, I really appreciate your words at the start of this. And I agree about extending grace would be a beautiful thing. I have a few words that I'd like to share, however, before I feel like I can be on the same page as extending grace. Last month, I came to the city council meeting here and I practiced my right and I practiced my duty as a community member and shared concerns that I have about some things that were going on in front of this council. I followed all of the rules. I followed all of the expectations for decorum. As many of us saw hours later, a council member in a fit that seemingly came out of nowhere stormed out with a verbal resignation. For anybody that missed it, it's available on the YouTube channel. Days after all of this, the same council member rescinding his resignation called me out several times by name in the generously lengthy tirade that was published by the Rochester Post Bulletin, stating that I was the reason that he stormed out of the meeting after having denied just that during his actual exit on the night of the meeting. Now, I'm not sure about the legality of all of that, but what I am sure of is that that violates every ethical construct that I can think of. Luckily, as a grown woman, I am strong enough to handle that kind of nonsense. But many people wouldn't be. Many people would see that kind of behavior as threatening, intimidating, and to use a popular term, humiliating. And they would choose that probably better just to keep my mouth shut instead of coming and raising concerns that I have. What kind of message does this send to our community? Come share your concerns with us?
30 seconds.
That has not been 3 minutes. This all begs the question, what's going on with this council? We need to take a serious step back and ask what kind of council are we going to tolerate as a community? One where a councilman can publicly smear a community member for doing nothing but exercising her rights as a community member. A council that apparently when challenged results in breaking decorum and causing complete disruption and delay of otherwise important work. Or one where community members who want to engage on boards and committees are receiving the message loud and clear that one important qualifier is to be an older retired white man if they really want a chance. Or a council.
Let's get it stopped. Stop. That's you're out of order. You're out of order. Excuse me.
Making fun of for women-owned businesses.
You're out of order.
Councilor,
Because you know, it's clear
your
that
time
there's
limits up.
white male voices at the table. All of this.
These have to be
Time
removed, please.
And
Your
we are
time is up.
seeing,
Please sit down.
okay?
Or
We
yes,
see
leave.
it.
Anybody else like to speak in public forum?
Are we on the agenda for the variance? Is that separate than this, or do we need to speak? now?
Yes, it's in our agenda, yes, but this is the time to speak, not during the planning and zoning.
Oh, so I can speak now.
Yes, of course.
Right? Remind me again, Jenna Keen, 456th Street Southeast, Orinoco. Hi. All right, so I did not attend the zoning and planning meeting that happened last Thursday, but I did watch it. I wanted to just make sure before it goes in front of the council this evening, everyone has seen it and reviewed the information. Is that a fair ask? Okay. And I wanted to just call it a couple of things as the landowner who's asking for the variance. A couple of them being the green space requirements were met, the hard space requirements are met, right? We did submit a request to add on to our existing garage because we live in River Park. It has to be attached to our existing structure. Our existing structure is a slab on grade garage because it's an ADA home. And we're asking to add on to the existing garage. It is over the 1,000 square foot maximum, which my understanding is based on 20,000 square foot lot size. Our lot size is well over 38,000 square feet, so substantially more than that requirement. Like I said, we are under the 5% requirement per the city ordinance in regards to space or the classified space of the garage in comparison to the overall lot size. So really, I believe, or my understanding based on watching the zoning and planning, is that the ask tonight of city council is that we come to an agreement, ideally a mutually agreeable conclusion of how we can move forward, or if we can move forward. It is the time of year where construction happens. The city's very familiar. You're going through a lot of construction. You're organizing resources. We've done all of that pre-work, so we're really just asking for the council's permission to move forward with our right to have a reasonable use of our garage, put our vehicles inside, abide by River Park's requirements that it is attached to our property, and otherwise feel we meet all of the requirements. So that is our ask. Any other questions? And oh, I did have one more question. Has everyone seen the visual, like what we're asking to do, just so you have a
As
visual?
part of the packet.
Okay,
I have one question.
sure.
I know that I wrote down a little bit of a message that when it seems like maybe there's a discrepancy between your lot or your size of the garage and then the Stantec,
Right.
like the size, could you,
So
what is your plan for the garage size?
the garage size right now to attach it to the existing garage, because it can't be an independent structure, and to keep it to River Park's requirement, which is that it looks as if it's part of the original structure. In order to fall under the 1,000 square foot, we basically be adding like a 17 by 17 square foot chunk off the side of our existing house. What we're asking to do is basically balance the garage space and flip the existing garage to mirror it on the other side, which should be the visual that you guys have all seen. It's not an absurd request by any means. If we put one stall there, it would be buried behind the existing garage structure and therefore would be like a 10-foot deep addition. So my understanding or our understanding is that the way city code is written, you have to be under 5% of under 1,000 square feet. But the under 1,000 square feet is based on 20,000 square foot, which we are almost double. So our ask is 1,700 square feet, I believe, with the existing garage and the additional garage, which puts us still well under the 5%, which is the other piece of the existing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, we asked a question.
You're right. And
She should be able to respond.
I
That
think
shouldn't be
you
part of
have
the
more to
plan.
say. I think it's,
No, I
I
don't
mean,
think.
a lot of the points you made are in our discussion.
Okay.
And so I think yes.
Thank you, Jenna.
Okay, second final call. Public forum. Third and final call for public forum. That will close at 6:55. Thank you. Next item is a petition in our packet. Everybody should have from Josh Oshie at the 275th Street Southeast. Everybody's had a chance to read that regarding stop sign on 5th Street Southeast, and concerned about the speed on 5th Street. As well as, I think the main thing too is the speed limit and the stop signs moving through the stop sign, so. I guess any other questions or comments regarding that? We have Sergeant Wren, who is the new contact for our replacing Sergeant Mark Chambers. So, if there's any other comments or questions regarding the letter? we can-
Ongoing issues. I'm not on, just only on our side, but on the west side as well, and part of the reason we tried to get the signs up, and I do think we need to take action and decrease the speed limit in the residential areas throughout the community.
Yeah,
And that is something that the Streets and Roads Committee is talking about.
and we'll touch on that a little bit later in our agenda as well.
Yeah, and the only thing I can offer is to ask citizens to reach out to your associations, you know, via your, if it's Facebook groups or if it's, you know, HOAs, and just, you know, plead with people. A lot of times it is not people who live there, but sometimes it is. Using the children at play signs. Those are all good ways to grab attention of drivers, especially now that it's getting warmer and kids are out playing.
It is. I don't know if it's the warm weather or whatever, but it is a growing concern that we have for sure, especially with no sidewalks and people walking down more, so. All right. Next item is our introduction by Sergeant Wren. Evidently he's outside, so he replaced Mark Chambers. The one thing I have noticed in the police or sheriff activity report is there has been some traffic stops of people going through that stop sign here just recently, so the sheriff is aware of that intersection and so I'm glad to hear they're doing that and watching that street. We still have limited time of our contract with the officers from the deputy sheriff, but they do they're aware of it. I think there's an incident report, the different types of and I was going to compare this to our previous month of 50 calls regarding different types of incidents. I'm not sure how that compares to the last month. But I do know there was a stop sign violation on 5th Street and 2nd Avenue Southeast, so they're sensitive to that. That's good.
It wasn't you.
All right.
And it wasn't you.
And it wasn't me, no.
If I could just add, Mayor, that in response to Josh Bosch on his email, I did respond to him, letting him know that I would be forwarding that information to Olmsted County Sheriff's Department. And so I did get a response back from Sergeant Chambers and Wren. So I'm glad to see that action is taking place, and it's I'm just gonna say, you know, we were made aware of these 33 chairs in motion at Olmsted County Law Enforcement, and I gotta tell you, since having heard that, there's been an uptick in terms of the relationship, the outreach that I've been experiencing, and officers stopping by, and I'm just really excited to see that we're, you know, moving in a positive direction, even though we may have some issues that need to be straightened out. But and I did tell them that I would have this item in the agenda, so you have that.
And I don't know if any of the council members reached out to Josh. I was trying to do it myself, but I haven't stopped there to talk to him either. But if you haven't, they just want to stop by and talk to him as well. Okay, water and sewer. Minutes. Joe, if you want to give us a wastewater update.
Yep. So obviously there is a lot of information in the water and sewer meeting minutes, and there is also a monthly memo discussing the wastewater treatment facility and kind of what's going on there. But real quickly on the wastewater treatment facility, construction continues. Contractor continues to make progress throughout the plant. There's been a lot of activity at the admin building, roofs on, sidings getting wrapped up. electrical, mechanical, HVAC work on the inside, that building is really coming together quickly. And then the other point of emphasis out there right now is concrete pours at the SBR tank. So steel and concrete being placed, as well as some piping and plumbing improvements associated with that as that work progresses over the next few weeks. The concrete pours are going to slow down because most of them will be complete, especially with that SBR process. So then, there'll be smaller pours, sidewalks, concrete pads, miscellaneous things, but the big concrete work is nearing completion. So that's a really big milestone for the site. And then with nicer weather, we'll start to see the contractor move in with excavators finishing up the remaining utility work that remains, and then starting to move material back around the SBRs and the buildings after all that concrete work. And those pours are complete. Those essentially, they've got a lot of material to move back out there, back around those structures, and really the final form of the facility will take shape at that point in time. So lots of progress being made, and that'll continue, especially with the good weather. We have been talking about a delay that we have become aware of over the last couple of months associated with the switch gear at the front end of the at the front end of the wastewater treatment plant. The switch gear is essentially the electrical gear that takes the power from the transformer and it routes it throughout the plant. And the manufacturer of that switch gear is indicating that is delayed, and it could potentially not be here until the fall of 2024, which is way later than it was supposed to be. So we've been kind of meeting with Eaton. You guys know that we've reached out with our legislators. Eaton is the manufacturer of that. They are working on ways to speed up that delivery. But they, to this point, still are unable to give us any update in terms of a new date. They're realistically targeting next spring. But they're even needing to work through that. They can't guarantee that at this point. So we've been working with the contractor to see if there are other options to essentially temporarily configure the facility so that it runs. And then when the switchgear would get installed, we would essentially have the contractor switch that out. And so in a meeting with the contractor yesterday, there's been a fair amount of work behind the scenes to figure out what the loads are at the treatment facility, what the contractor has available to temporarily augment the switch gear that we're waiting for, what the wastewater flows would be. At this point, based on the meeting yesterday, we have a preliminary plan that we could essentially operate the facility in the near term over the next 6 to 12 months. So I think that that's a pretty good development. The contractor is indicating that he's got 2 400 amp panels that he has access to that would be able to be utilized. We looked at the various loads that the treatment facility will have in the near term. We're able to kind of do this because our flows are much lower than they ultimately be, in 20 years. That's what the treatment facility is designed for. So we've looked at those near-term flows, and we've looked at the treatment processes. We've looked at the loads that are needed to run the various pumps and blowers and lights and heaters and all that other stuff. And preliminarily, we've come up with a solution that we think will work. And so we're going to continue to work on that with the contractor and other folks to kind of advance that. Of course, that's all contingent upon the other pieces of equipment coming in when they're saying they're supposed to come in. But manufacturers of the other pieces say they're coming in. So the most critical component there that we're going to be watching is the motor control centers that basically take that electricity and that's what controls operations of the various equipment components. So some positive developments there. I am optimistic that this will come together and we will be able to start operations this fall. That's a little bit later than what we had planned on. We planned on starting midsummer with full operation in the fall. We'll start and ramp that operation up in the fall. So probably commissioning, hopefully in September is what we're thinking now, with full operation sometime in October. And so again, this is preliminary based on efforts that and discussions that have occurred over the last month, but I think positive events will continue to monitor that, keep the council up to date on that. Sunny and Kane and I will be meeting on that, as well as some other things later this week. But something, it's the information I have to share with the council at this point in time.
You're thinking October of this year, optimistically.
Yeah.
Joe, in the message or in the minutes from the meeting, it said there are possible risks associated with this approach. Could you?
Well, we've been talking about those two and evaluating them. One of the risks is, you know, we don't have our full. You don't have the ability to run the entire treatment process for the entire flow. So if, for example, we get larger flows than we're projecting, then that gets to, you know, there's risk with that because we can't turn on all the blowers. We can't turn on all the pumps at one time. But we think with the limited flow that we have, and we can control how many connections that we do allow and when we allow them. And, you know, we think that it's a reasonable thing to deal with. We have also talked about, you know, the reliability of the equipment that we would be using on a temporary basis. Well, we kind of come to find out that that's pretty reliable equipment. We don't have as much concern because we didn't know, but we will continue to evaluate those risks. You know, just trying to be upfront with everybody that, you know, it's not a simple process, and there's lots of things that we need to consider and evaluate. And so we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to provide you guys with as much information as you want, or we have, and then we'll make decisions as we kind of move forward. So that is the wastewater update. Any questions on that piece, or if not, I can move to the sewer collection conveyance.
No, it's great news. You know, it's better than it was a week ago.
Yes.
Sure.
I see that Sergeant Wren is back with us,
Okay.
so I know we have them for a limited time, so
Sure.
if we wanted to.
Okay, Joe. Just
Yeah, absolutely.
Sergeant Wren?
He doesn't have his business cards yet, I'm just gonna tell you, he's so new,
Yes,
but next month.
so I am Sergeant Wren, newly assigned up here, as your guys' point of contact. So any issues you guys have or comments, concerns, whatever, can kind of be directed through me. I'll be taking over for Sergeant Chambers, and kind of filling his role when he transitions to a new spot in the office. So I don't have a whole lot because I've just started in this role yesterday. So don't have any real information for you guys, but and once they come, if anything comes up, I'll bring it forward, or if you guys have things for me, concerns, whatever, let me know. And I'll bring my business card by, so everybody has that too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I will point out is in our discussion earlier today, we have a connection having both served in the city of Starbuck.
Oh, really?
I was city administrator and he was an officer, not at the same time,
Right.
but just ironically, that's small world.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Back to the update.
Yeah.
I just also mentioned we had an opportunity to have some folks come out to the treatment facility last week. Take a tour. We had both council as well as sewer and water committee members out there. It's always good to come out. If you have time, let me know. I'd be happy to walk through it with you, or have Jeff walk through it with you. There's lots to see out there that's interesting, and before it's done, it'd be good to get out there. So by all means, let me know if you want to come out. Sanitary sewer, collection conveyance, that's the Fitzgerald projects. Fitzgerald did complete the reclaiming of the streets, at least the first half of the reclaiming of the streets and mostly downtown Orinoco, but a little bit over in Stokes Cove on First Place Southwest. And they continue to make progress installing utilities. There's been some force main installed over by the schoolhouse on the south side of the river, if you will. That is wrapping up. And there's also some force main from lift station 4 to Cedar Point Road that did get finished and connected to the force main that was installed. So moving forward, you know, you're going to continue to see restoration activities, restoring areas of turf, ditches, things like that that were disturbed last year and need to get restored this year and seeded and growing. And then also utility work next week on First Place Southwest, as well as probably a couple spots in the downtown area. We'll start to see construction activity. We will be sending out a project update for residents on Thursday, kind of talking about the next couple of weeks of activity. I think the rest of this week is looking to be pretty wet, so I think things are going to slow down here for just a minute. Any questions on collection conveyance piece of the puzzle? Mayor, do you want to talk about the open houses that we're talking about or tentatively planning, or do you want me to?
The Water and Sewer Committee, at our last meeting, we had just in the minutes too, we were looking at having open houses for the public at the end of May 22nd, 23rd, I think, it's that last week in May, so. But Joe and staff will be here to answer questions and during the day as well.
And in advance of that, we also have some information that we're preparing, or we've got a draft prepared. I'll be meeting with city staff on that later this week, but essentially guidance documents for sewer and water connections, what residents have to do, how that process will really work, things that they should be thinking about. Kind of a list of contractors that they could contact if they wish to do so to get those processes started, and when we think they'll have access to those utilities for their connections. So that information will probably be sent out by email and in some instances mailed out in advance of these public information meetings. And the public information meetings are essentially to talk about construction, talk about services, talk about anything that residents and property owners have questions about. So we'll be here for a good chunk of the day. No presentations necessarily, just kind of an open house format. People come in, ask questions, talk about their properties. We'll provide them with some general information and hopefully that'll facilitate construction.
Are you still considering the 2 evenings and 1 morning session?
Well, it's debatable. That's what was proposed, and I'd be happy to do something else if the council thinks that'd be a better idea. We're just looking to, you know, provide some times day, you know, maybe morning and evening that people can get here if they wish to.
I like that.
And if they don't, you know, we can always be contacted by email or phone calls. All the resident notices have our contact information on it, and we're happy to disseminate information that way too.
Yeah, I think it's important to catch the people that are kind of in between work and their kids' activities, so.
And we will have a contractor representative here too to answer questions from their perspective as well as mine.
Joe, just for clarification, do we also anticipate having information on possible funding sources for them available at this?
Yes, that is actually in the guidance documents to individual residents that I prepped. We'll talk about that a little bit, but I did within each one of those documents include the programs that we've identified, just a little bit of cursory information about what the program is, and then the contact information for the resident to utilize to contact the HRA or the SWCD or rural development.
So what you send out to the residents are these 3 documents.
Well, I think, yeah,
Which ones, the water system,
it depends on what they're getting, you know,
of course, yeah.
if they're just getting a water service, then I would just send them that. If they're getting just a gravity sewer, I would send them that. If they're getting a low pressure sewer system, most of them will also are getting water. So I think we have a master list of all of these, and I think I would try to marry up the right information for the right people. And then, of course, we'll post it on city website and try to make it clear for folks to access that way, and probably even have copies here, just like we do the bi-weekly updates. So lots of different ways to get information out. It's just important that we are successful doing it. So,
I don't know if we need a motion to set those dates.
I don't know if we do necessarily or not. They're not public hearings or anything. They're just public open houses. Whatever you think, Sonny, is fine with me.
I would just want, consensus, I guess, from council that those dates work and we've got it available, for reservations, so.
Right, and know that we're
That's-
probably looking at, you know, a couple night spots and a morning spot type of deal. So trying to provide some diversity in times.
So we're looking at May 22nd, May 23rd, which is a Monday, Tuesday.
Right. And one of those days, we're kind of talking about maybe morning and evening.
Our council meeting is the week before the 16th, so this is after the council meeting, so.
This looks good to me.
For general consensus, okay?
Yeah, I think it's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Gas main,
So we have been talking about the gas main quite a bit.
to the treatment plant.
Yeah, to the treatment plant, I'm sorry. So recently, I've had some correspondence with Orinoco Estates. That was one of the things that we were hoping to leverage is their development or expansion of Orinoco Estates south of the treatment facility. And so the most recent information that I've gotten from those folks is they have an agreement to acquire that property, but they don't anticipate closing until this fall. And so I've provided that information to the gas company. They've reciprocated and provided their thoughts about how that impacts their analysis, and they're kind of indicating that, you know, they are oversizing that gas main. They're, again, just a little bit more history. They're proposing to extend gas main from Hunter Street along Minnesota Avenue to the wastewater treatment facility. And they're proposing to install a 4-inch main. The wastewater treatment facility is required to have approximately a 2-inch main. And so they're paying for the oversizing with the understanding that someday there'll be more gas demand. So that isn't included in the cost that they're looking to charge Orinoco. Okay, so that's an important piece of the puzzle. And so in some respects, they've accounted for that already. We also provided some additional information about proposed development along that corridor that's reduced the cost a little bit. And they were able to refine their numbers a little bit, and ultimately they're looking at a cost to extend that gas main from Hunter Street to the wastewater treatment facility and then all the way into essentially the admin building where our gas service serves the property. And that cost is about $62,718. And that is an issue because we have a private utility allowance within the contract that's $55,000. Okay, and so what happens with that private utility allowance is the contractor coordinates the extension of gas, electric, and telephone communications to the treatment facility, and those things all have a cost. And we estimated that cost to be about $55,000. Well, the reality is that the gas is costing significantly more than what we estimated or budgeted. And so that cost is going to exceed the allowance by about $21,000 based on the information that we have now. You know, we know that the electrical costs to date have been about $13,600 and with a $61,000 or $62,000 gas cost, we're gonna be about $21,000 over that $55,000 allowance. And so that's the way we handle that is I wanna let you know that. We've kind of looked at the other alternatives. We've looked at the propane option. We've talked about that in sewer and water and even within the council to an extent. Just looking at that, it just doesn't pencil out, doesn't make sense to the extent that I was hoping it would. The gas company's cost has come down from what it was originally discussed at $100,000, which helps. But we're still over budget. And so I want the council's I guess consent to sign the agreement to have the gas company install this, and then after we know all the private utility costs, we'll execute a change order with the contractor, and essentially the contractor will be made whole. We'd increase the allowance amount up to an equal amount of what it really costs. So that's the process we're kind of moving towards, if that makes sense.
Does that call for a motion on that?
I think it'd be good just to document for future purposes when we could look at our contingency funds and how it was used and.
Right, and I should have also mentioned that. So we do have a contingency. It falls within that contingency. The costs are still eligible for our funding and financing. Essentially, it's part of our contingency at this point, but we do have a way to pay for this. And what we would do is I included the agreement within the packet and Sunny would sign that agreement. We'd send that to the contractor. The contractor would send the agreement along with a check for $62,718.10 to the gas company. And then they get to work installing the gas main. It'll probably be late summer before that gets installed at this point.
That come ultimately back as a change order directly, so there's even more documentation then.
Yeah, ultimately, it will come back as a change order. That's the only way we can increase that contract amount, that allowance amount. But I want to wait to execute the change order and make sure that there are no other costs on the private utility side.
So we can have a motion, but I think ultimately we have to have another motion to accept the change order.
Yes, you will. Absolutely. It just allows Sunny to sign that agreement and I just puts everybody kind of on notice that that's the plan moving forward. So we're all rowing the same direction.
If you want to make a motion, that's fine. Whatever.
Well, no, if we want to do it as a change order, then I think that we should probably do it that way at that time, right?
Actually, I think we should do both.
So if I am understanding correctly, what you're looking for tonight is action from the council approving signing the
Yes.
agreement. Subsequently, we'll approve a change order and ideally the numbers match, right?
Yeah. That's the plan.
Okay.
Perfect.
Joe, I have one question for you. So in the future, that the plan is to extend it to Orinoco States, right? In the future, is there any way of, with that extension, to recoup some of this? No?
No, I did ask that
Okay,
specifically.
okay. Can't win if you don't play.
You gotta ask. And their response to that is, well, we're oversizing the main. From 2 to 4 inch, and essentially Orinoco was the first real customer out there. And they don't have a timeline for anything else really that's gonna happen.
I think we should I make a motion that we approve signing of a contract with the Minnesota Energy for the $62,718.10. Second. Any other comments? From where we started, I guess we did okay, but could have been better, but that's okay.
Lot to fight.
Tried.
At least it wasn't 100,000.
is an ongoing discussion. So with that, any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Resident notice number 20 is out there and it's in your packet.
21 will go out Tuesday, Thursday.
Very good. Thanks, Joe. Public Works. We have action on the skid loader replacement trailer. There he is, waiting for us.
I have been.
So. Go ahead, why don't you just, give a high level review here, of what you.
Yeah, so last month I came to council with just one quote for a new skid loader. And that kind of turned into just kind of getting everyone ready to make a decision tonight. So I came back with some more quotes. We landed on two different manufacturers, Bobcat and Caterpillar. Pretty close in price. And then we landed on several trailer options. So if you look in your packet, I am requesting tonight not to exceed $50,000 from CIP funds for the purchase of a new skid loader and a trailer. So I can do that with either skid loader and the highlighted trailer, not to exceed the $50,000 mark.
And that includes trade-in of the
And
tool
yep,
cab.
yep, everything you see here includes that trade-in value, yep.
Can you comment just briefly on the performance between the two? What way?
You know, I don't think I can tell the difference between the Cat or the Bobcat. I think they're great machines, they're brand new machines. I can't tell if I'm lifting 2,200 pounds or 2,400 pounds. You know, I don't know who can. So I think both of them are capable. I think right now what it comes down to is myself and the Public Works team going out and actually being able to kick the tires on these things, get in them, jump in them, drive them around the parking lot. You know, and I didn't want to do that with these companies until I had the go ahead from the council. You know, I don't want to waste any of their time or any of our time doing it. So like I said, either skid loader, Bobcat or Caterpillar, I think they're both capable. I think it may come down to what we prefer, what maybe has a better seat or better lights or, you know, just personal preference.
From the product support standpoint, I know you've been dealing with Bobcat all along with the Tool Cat.
So all the attachments are interchangeable. Caterpillar is a little bit bigger company, more of a worldwide company versus Bobcat, but both plenty capable of what we're requiring.
Resale wise, Cat's got a better resale.
Yep, you're 100% right. Resale Cat will have a better value. Yes, and that is one thing I can dive into. But I don't need to get into the weeds with what ifs and hypotheticals. But I do have some of that information if we wanted to discuss more. And like I said, I think now's the time if the council allows to allow me to spend up to 50,000 and
But one thing that you're using the CIP, does Public Works have any other CIP items or is this the only one for the year?
so this will be the only one for the year. Of course, I say that now and tomorrow something starts on fire, but no, nothing planned for the year.
Thank you.
Is there a reason you wanna go with that lighted trailer? Won't we be better off buying a little heavier duty trailer?
Well, yes and no. Sometimes it's overkill. Sometimes maybe we just want to haul it to Menards and pick up some lumber.
What does like the Cat weigh or the skid loader?
The machine,
Yeah.
they're less than 10,000 pounds. So we're fully capable with any of these trailers. You see 15,000, 16,000, the price jumps up pretty good once you hit that 16,000, 18,000. there were a few companies that offered some used demo units that were more expensive than some of the newer units, so I think that one highlighted there, the Minnesota tilt style, which the team would prefer a tilt style trailer. So you're not lugging up those heavy ramps every time you're unloading and loading, so I think that's an excellent trailer. Invergrove Heights, they're in stock.
I'd make a motion that we allow Kane to spend up to $50,000 to make these two purchases.
I'll second that. What type of delivery time?
Well, summer on the Cat and fall on the Bobcat. The trailers will be in stock. I imagine we'll get that ahead of time.
So they'll still honor the trade-in value,
Yes,
power independent, okay.
yes, they will. Of course, you know, we're not gonna damage it. We're not gonna put on 1,000 hours on our current machine. We're gonna be respectful of it, and they understand that. They're taking a risk there too, so.
Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed? Approved. Thanks, Kane. Thanks. Moving to streets and roads.
No fire department.
Okay. Just FYI,
It says
or did I miss something?
activity. No council action. Yeah, right.
So, Kane, Jim Richards, myself and Sonny met here last week, I guess it was. We had several items. We didn't quite get through all of them. We did talk about some of the issues of streets and roads. But the one in particular that we want to just, we want to go through this agenda, or just a couple of the ones that we really keyed in on was stop signs.
Yeah.
I defer to this movie.
You wanna-
And Kane. I would defer to all three of you.
Go ahead. It was stop signs. It was three-way stops. We talked about speed limits. And I think we had decided that that would come back to council for a little more discussion. But we had talked about three-way stops on First Avenue and 9th on the west side, and West Center and 9th. And wasn't there one more?
Second Avenue.
Yeah, Second Avenue.
Can you say those one more time?
So First Street and 9th Avenue, Northwest, sorry, yeah, and West Center Street and 9th Avenue.
Northwest?
Yeah.
And these are three-way, you said?
Three-way
Three-way
stops.
stops.
Okay, and then the third?
And the third one was Second Avenue
Timberline.
and Timberline.
Okay.
And again, we also talked about the speed limit. Speed limit signs, but those three-way stops would be accompanied by the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and stop ahead signs.
Flags and flashing lights. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding.
We have
But-
flags already.
But they are gonna flag them because they are new and.
It's important. That's potentially. I feel like we need to broadcast that widely within the neighborhoods and even the post, I don't know, just as many places as we can. I think some of the biggest culprits will be delivery trucks at first. Just because there's delivery trucks will be some of our biggest culprits and concern, because big vehicles going fast on a mission, a regular route. It could pose a dangerous situation. They're not used to it. So I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we properly alert our city.
And the thought was those three locations, there's, it is somewhat speed related, but more or less there is also blind driveways.
Yeah,
In all three cases, there's blind driveways. If you're going Timberline and Second Avenue, there's blind driveways on either side of it. And for walking with no sidewalks in a 24-foot street, the 9th Avenue and First Street Northwest, that is, that's a hill with driveways on the west side going through or past 9th Avenue, there's driveways on the right side. And then the same thing on West Center Street and 9th Avenue. There's a blind driveway coming from the eastbound. And at the same time, if you're going westbound, there's one just a little bit over the crest. So it's really it's the driveways, just lowering that speed on those. It's the speed limits reduction before the stop sign and also just because of the blind driveways. I feel like that's really. Because we know we've done speed tests on Second Avenue and there's people that are still speeding past 20 miles an hour. It's like 22, 24 miles an hour, but in the case of Second Avenue, I think it's like 25% of the traffic are traveling faster than 30 miles an hour.
yeah.
So it's still, I mean, there are people. I mean, it is dropping a couple miles an hour, but at the same time, I think there's like 86 violations or 86% violations. So it's really the people that are following it, it's great, but at the same time, there's people that aren't.
Yeah, I feel like we've kind of given everybody a chance to do the right thing and they haven't. So
Sorry.
I feel like we've given everybody a chance to do the right thing and slow down and it's
Yeah.
just not working. What is the timeline that you propose on installing these?
Kane, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. The signs are ordered, some of them are back ordered. 20-mile-an-hour signs are kind of rare. But they're on order. They're gonna arrive here the next couple weeks. We'll be getting locates called in. A lot of locates because it'll be a 20-mile-an-hour sign, then 250 feet, 300 feet later, it'll be a stop ahead sign, then it'll be a stop sign. So multiple locates going each direction. And then of course, we are flagging them and make everyone aware that the signs are there and it'll be something new for sure.
Yeah, so if we can communicate in a memo somehow ahead of that installation, I think that would be helpful. At least set it out to those HOAs and
And on the west side, correct me if I'm wrong, but going up the hill, the sun is a real factor
Yeah.
too, as you're.
oh, I'm sure.
And so we want to make sure that we're creating, public safety because it's getting nice out. Spring is here, I believe. And people will want to be out walking and not have to jump in the ditch just to stay alive.
And not to keep this conversation going, but whatever became of the petition at the beginning of the meeting, do we need to look at that separately? The 5th Street and 2nd Avenue? I don't need an answer either. We can skip that and streets and roads can discuss
Got
it.
some thoughts on that we've been thinking about, but nothing really.
Okay. For starters,
More bringing awareness. Possibly, so, yeah.
For starters, it's just gonna be the 3 intersections, Timberline and 2nd, 1st and 9th and West.
On that intersection they're talking about, there's already there's a four-way.
Two-way stop.
Two-way stop, yeah. So,
And we will come back, I will come back and communicate with council about certain areas in town that we could possibly change a 30 to a 25 or maybe even a 20 based on sites and hills and complaints and whatnot. So more to come there.
I'd like to see it 25 residential across the board. Especially driving over on that west side where there's so many houses and children. Thought of going 30 miles an hour, it's terrifying over there.
All right, thank you, Kane.
Thanks, King.
I think that's about, there's some follow-up with snow plowing, but I think Sonny was gonna do that and potholes, but the next item is our street condition yearly. We have yearly street reviews. And, I don't know if we talked about doing anything, you know, with our sewer project, they're taking care of a lot of our streets. I think you mentioned last week about like West Center Street, First Street Northwest, about being milled.
Yeah.
Edge of
At the
the
bottom.
edge of the restoration to this Lake Shady Avenue, so.
Right. Well, then what we have done in the past is every other year we do a crack fill seal coat project. This is the year to do that. So that would be something that council should consider, to kind of stay on that schedule and to keep up with that work. You've got a lot of miles of roadway and difficult to keep up. Obviously, we'd want to stay out of areas that will be impacted by construction. But there are undoubtedly other candidates that likely are in need, and it's just maintenance, crack filling and seal coating, but something that you'd want to consider. And then the other piece is we didn't stripe any streets last year. You might want to stripe some streets. Usually that they're 2-3 year type of cycle before you want to restripe, and by this fall, my guess is there's going to be a lot of streets in need, if they're not already in need.
So do you want the street committee to meet sometime in early May then?
That's what we've done in the past. You know, the clock's really kind of ticking, especially on seal coats. If you guys want to do a seal coat, we need to get a quote out in May to get that work done. The striping is a little, you know, it's quicker, it's more forgiving in terms of the time it takes, but you don't want to wait till fall to do it either, because those folks get really busy.
You mean do a drive around?
Right, did a drive around like the last week in April, first week in May.
Something like that. Yeah.
Sooner the better, just because we get something, well, I have to come back to the council on the 18th for approval. So the sooner we look at the streets to give you time to report back,
Right.
to draw up a report, so.
So then if we do that in May, then you're probably gonna get quotes back in June, which is maybe okay, but a little late.
Yeah. All right. We'll shoot for a late April.
Yeah.
Street review with Kane and Jim and I do. Okay,
Do you have a, excuse me, Joe, do you have a ballpark, or maybe council knows as well, what the cost has been historically?
Yeah.
You've done this kind of every 2 years, so like what kind of, what have we budgeted?
50 to
for?
60.
That's correct.
Typically.
50-60,000, and it does vary a little bit. You know, we have the ability to kind of, you know, match our target budget number. On the striping piece is more variable because some years we've done it and some years we haven't. But you can stripe a lot of roads for $10,000, for example. The seal coating and crack filling are the more expensive ones.
And then are there some that are maybe torn up already, or for instance, like West Center, that are on the schedule for crack filling and seal coat, but are actually part of the project that we wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. We account for the condition and yeah, but Orinoco's got, I don't remember, 20 some miles of street. To take care of, and it just, you got a lot of streets to take care of, and I would recommend staying on that schedule. $50,000 or $60,000 is a lot of money, but not when you're talking about reconstructing roadways. You know, that money there's real value in that reconditioning and maintenance. It really makes a difference.
Have we done it often enough that we're on a regular cycle yet that, okay, the ones that we're looking at for this year are the same? Like,
We're kind of getting into that where we're
almost there?
redoing. In some areas we are, yes, but you know, we haven't done a pavement management plan. We don't have this sequenced out. And especially with all the streets and things that have been reconstructed, that's gonna continue to evolve because there's no sense in seal coating some of these newer streets, when we have needs elsewhere. So,
To expedite, would it be appropriate to, even though you're gonna do this review the end of this month or early May, would it be appropriate to do an authorization tonight for that, so that once you have that information from the drive around, he can go ahead so that we, in May's meeting, we can actually issue the bid.
Based on
award the bid.
What do we have in the budget for that for this year? Do you know?
Not off the top of my head, no.
I think that's a good idea. You'll save some money. Just from the timing of the bids.
Yeah,
I really do.
so we can say up to a specific amount.
Until, you know, yeah.
Based on-
60 or
Yeah, based on the
65,000.
last year. I don't know.
Try to target that
You or I
budget
don't
number.
remember. But
Just a thought.
we could give a
The only
target.
question that comes into that is that if there's any patching that needs to be done in addition to seal coating, because I know there's places on Riverwood Drive that are starting to, a patch is gonna need to be. So it's those type of things that we don't know for sure until we actually look at them too, so that's what kind of. But if we want to do up to 65,000 or something like that, we can decide what we can't do for that amount, but we don't want to really go over that either, I don't think, so.
That's a good thought.
No, I
You
think
need to
it's a
have
good idea because that kind of gives.
Starting motion to put that in, or
What's that?
I make a motion then we need to approve up to $65,000 for road repair and do it that way. So that'll do seal coat and patchwork and striping.
I think all you really need to do, if I might suggest, is we're just asking that we solicit quotes for construction costs within that range, right? For street maintenance.
Right.
So, and then it'll come back to the council, you know, once we kind of figure out what streets need attention and what we would want to do in terms of crack filling, seal coating, striping, those types of things. You would ultimately approve those bids. So it'll come back to you, you'll see the final numbers.
Right.
Right.
I don't know.
And I think the Streets and Roads Committee, including Kane, you know, have that flexibility to really hone in on what the bid process should include or and back off a bit on and stuff. So, you know, I'm all about transparency when we get to the council and awarding the funds, but I do feel like we can empower the committee too a little bit in terms of defining that RFP or Q.
Any other comments? The other concern, not concern, but issue is just oil prices. What they're gonna be and how that's gonna impact the seal coat, but we'll have to deal with that, I guess, and make some decisions if it's way out of line.
Yep.
So the motion is to authorize solicitation of bids for
that.
crack fill, seal coating and striping.
Right.
So,
And Jim second that, motion second. Any other comments? No, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Oppose? Approved. Street sweeping. Dane has a recommendation. Go with
feeling
that.
like a jack in the box tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, just get a chair. There's two quotes in front of you, two local contractors. They bid it a little differently. One contractor has two sweepers that they use and a additional truck. So when the sweepers get full, they go to this truck and then the truck does the dumping. kind of think of it as they can stay sweeping longer without driving the sweeper to the dump site across town, right?
Then we don't pay that
Right.
for that time.
Right, so I think there's some efficiency there, and I broke it down too in that spreadsheet, you know, it's just. If, you know, historically, it's been around that 2,500 to 3,000. What we've spent on annual street sweeping. We have less streets to sweep this year because of the torn up streets with the project. But we still have a lot of streets to do, and for the most part, our streets just get a one pass. So if we have areas that need a little bit more attention, maybe we could work with the contractor and have them hit that area a little bit more. And so having the flexibility, what you see in front of you there, and then having myself, my team work with these contractors to say, these are the areas of interest, and here's the number. Do not go over this. And, you know, we're all on the same page. Either contractor, they're both great contractors. We've done work with both of them in the past. Like I said, they just bid it differently, different styles of doing things, so.
I make a motion, we spend up to $4,000 for the street sweeping using street maintenance funds.
Second.
Any more comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Thank you.
Planning and zoning. There's a building. Well, I guess we didn't have a building permit activity. Okay. Okay, we'll go with that. That's fine, I think just FYI, so thank you. Change, there's a memo about changing building office services over the next year. Current, about these building inspections, Casey and Roger will be phasing out, and the new service, WSE Engineering Services from Rochester will take over the business and become the official building official for the city. But Roger and Casey would help with the transition over the next 12 months.
You have Casey's here, and we have representation
Okay.
from the new company, so if you wanna
You have any comments?
stand up and introduce yourself.
Yeah.
So I'll start since I'm stepping away. I'm Casey, for those of you who haven't met me. The other half of me is in Pine Island at their city council meeting tonight, and same for him. So my dad and I both took jobs in other professions outside of building inspections. And so in the process of stepping away and trying to figure out a solution for the city to continue having building inspection services, we sought out CMS, which is in that letter, Construction Management Services, who was recently purchased by WSE Engineering. We know the owner of CMS, his name is Jay Kruger. We worked with their firm in helping them in jurisdictions that have had major storm damage and stuff. We know them really well. They do a great job serving the jurisdictions that they do. And we wanted that for the cities that we serve. We didn't just want to leave our cities to the wind and find. We've seen some services provided by other agencies and have been super thrilled with them. CMS, on the other hand, we feel do a great job. And on top of that, they, because of them serving outside of city limits, they have guys that are STS or SSTS certified, which is septic system stuff, which I think could be a benefit, as you all know, with all of the stuff going on in septics in the city. So yeah, we sought them out. It wasn't the other way around, so there's no weird stuff going on there. We truly just wanted the city to have a good service as we step away. And Roger and I will still be assisting and making a smooth transition. Permits that came in under us are going to stay under us. We are both still licensed. We will be completing those and finishing them out because they were our baby per se. So This is Tom. He's the owner of WSC, and I'll let him say a few things.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, acting mayor, council members here. My name is Tom Weiner. You either grow up tough or a sense of humor, by the way. I like to think I took the sense of humor route, but my daughter reminds me that more than I have to laugh, I guess, for it to be funny. So working on that piece, but let's see here. I own WSC Engineering Services, which has 3 divisions. The first one, or one of them, is WSC Massey, which is in WC Massey Engineering and Surveying is the full name of the division. It's just a full service engineering, planning and surveying firm. Also own a division that's called INJA of Rochester and Twin Cities, which is a forensic engineering where we have nationwide resources to be able to pull in solutions or cause and origin or just find a cause, I guess, and remediation for anything that's that hasn't gone according to plan. So it's an association that we join with here that gives us a lot of resources here to be able to pull upon anything forensic and figure out what the solution could be. And the third here is Construction Management Services of Rochester here, is affectionately known as CMS. And we have 33 staff, up to 40 during summertime. 4 licensed PEs, multiple EITs or engineers in training, 5 licensed surveyors, 2 fully licensed building officials, and 2 limited licensed building officials. Just wanted you to get a sense of who our staff were. 2 of them are ex McGee and Betts owners here that are some of our division leads. What else we've got here? Don't want to forget anything, so I wrote it down. One of our is a recently retired Olmsted County surveyor here. So bottom line is we have lots of depth and knowledge, even with the size of our small firm of being in that 33 to 40, but we specialize in servicing communities the size of Orinoco, and CMS is in 37 jurisdictions serving as building officials here. So with the addition of the contracts that we purchased, that brings us up to 40 if Orinoco would like to keep us. We've made that process as seamless as possible for you. We've transferred over building official to one of our licensed BOs, building official, Randy Bontham. So he's licensed or he's certified. The paperwork's been transferred. I think Roger and some of my staff have been working with city staff here to learn processes of any nuanced processes of what they've done, and to bring our expertise here to make this transition as seamless as possible. So as Casey said, the other folks, you guys have timed your city councils with Pine Island here, so that we split resources here just to come and introduce myself and see if you guys have any questions. So that was kind of the nutshell here, but we're going to try and make it as painless as possible and give you guys the same service that you've been used to.
Good. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Casey.
Thanks, Casey.
And Casey, did you want to tell them what your new job is? We could see him around.
Are we gonna see you around, maybe?
Maybe. I just started with Olmsted County Sheriff's Office full time.
Great.
It's what I used to do years ago and back into it. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
All right. Planning and zoning. Up next, in addition to the minutes, but also we should have a resolution regarding approving or denying the variance for the AJ property. So Jim and Jim were on the planning and zoning committee. So we'll start with what the recommendation was.
I just to bring this full circle. Casey was when AJ originally brought in the building application. It went to Casey and they were actually the ones to find the issue with the variance and the whole kind of thing. We also have Phil Carlson,
Okay.
he via Zoom. Thank you, Phil. And then have the two counselors who also serve on the planning and zoning commission. So I think hopefully all were able to read the Stantec planning memo from Phil and the minutes. Well, we didn't have the minutes from that meeting just last week, but hopefully you got to watch it. Any comments? So everybody's here. Including Jenna and DJ.
Anyway, we went through and had a really, really good discussion of everything that transpired on that request that there was for the variance. Because we talked about almost an hour, I think, after that, going through everything that was going on. What we did is we went through all the issues that there are and went in depth on what was going on for findings of facts for actually for the denial of the variance, and the vote was 6-1 on what was taken on for not allowing for the variance. And we went through a couple of different things that there were, and we're going strictly by what the city code was. And looking at that and following those directions that there were, and of course, Bill was a part of that too, for what he had as he was listening to that. The thing that there was that came in to question was total amount that there would be for the building when you put the two garages together, and it's 1,815 square feet. Even if you go back to the size of the lot, which is 0.82 acres in size. If you look at it, there were a couple other things that there were, and again, the recommendation that there was from Phil was elect for the variance. Going through some of the issues that there were, the new construction would be 1,067 square feet, but you put that with the existing garage, and that's where it totals out to be 1,815 square feet. Going through and looking at some of the variances and the conditions that there were associated with it. So to allow a variance, you have basically 6 different items that you have to have that will fit into a variance, and that's under Orinoco zoning code 151.401, which is dealing with variances. And to do it, requirements of this chapter shall be authorized by the city council unless the council finds that all of the following facts and conditions exist. Number 1 was basically extraordinary conditions and circumstances such as irregularity, narrowness, shallowness of a lot, and of course those don't equate to what was actually asking here. Another one would be a unique property, which would be extraordinary conditions and circumstances. Going again back to the property by the landowner, and that does not fit either. The third one is variances to overcome practical difficulties in complying with zoning ordinances, and that does not fit either. The fourth one is basically materially detrimental to public welfare, and of course, there's no problems with that. And the fifth one is variances of harmony and general purposes. That one's fine. And again, the last one will be terms of variances and consistencies with the comprehensive plan, and that's fine. But not all of these fit, and so that's what we're looking at. Is, and of course, when you look at this, it also goes back to the Minnesota State Statute of Variances, which is 257, which goes along and explaining more variances. So, and in particular, it goes and it says the manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance is the plight of a landowner due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner and the variance. So looking at all of those put together and where our code sits at, that's why we denied the variance. It's just, it doesn't fit into where our code is at this time. Now, currently, we're taking a look at changing some of the codes that there are. And this is one in particular that we were taking a look. And so to do that and make a change in the code, to take a public hearing, and we wanted to do that later on. So there's numerous things that we're looking at, so. Bill, you have any other comments?
No, I think he summarized what happened at the meeting very well. But I would just reiterate that I think everyone who is looking at this understands that what is being proposed is a perfectly reasonable use. And as the owner pointed out, it's just not an absurd request. It's not at all. The problem is with the numbers that are in your code. And I really would urge the council to look for ways that they could allow this project at some time in the future if you feel it's reasonable. But granting a variance simply does not follow the rules you have in your ordinance right now. And I would suggest that's not the way to solve the problem now, is to grant a variance. So it could be a future action. It may not be that complicated to amend the ordinance to fix this, the jump in the numbers here that this applicant is caught in. But having a reasonable use of the property is only one of the criteria that variances are judged against. And as was pointed out, the others really don't justify a variance in this situation.
So I just have a few comments on the percentage. So there's a percentage less than 5% of total lot size. So if you take that, their lot size is 35,880 feet, and that would be 1,794. Okay. According to Stantec's measurements, not, from us. And I don't know, their measurements are almost 200. There's almost a 200. Well, no, 115 foot difference between what Keens are asking and what Stantec is saying. So they're saying it's about 1,700 and Stantec is 1,815. So that is, and I know Phil, is that his name, Phil? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
I just second guessed myself.
Yeah.
I know you had said it was almost a double, but in my calculations, that less than 5% is 1,794 and 1,815 is certainly not double of that. It's very close.
Yes, you're correct. And if I may, Mr. Mayor and Council, 5% is in the code, but it's very clear at the top of that table. It says that what you consider the allowable size is the lesser of, and then there's two things listed, either the lesser of the total allowable square feet, which is in the table below, or 5%. So in this case, it lists 1,000 square feet for lots less than an acre, and that's less than the 5%, which would be 1,700 some square feet. So 1,000 square feet is the standard from that table. It's clear that when they use that phrase, lesser of the, and then they have two choices. So 5% is not the number that is applicable here. It's the 1,000 square feet.
Okay. Well, and then if we just throw out numbers out completely, I would argue that they do meet the requirements of these variances. Number one, there are extraordinary conditions or circumstances such as irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of the lot. They have a large ravine in their backyard. making it, difficult to place a garage anywhere else. We also don't allow 2 driveways in our code, so they couldn't place the garage on any other part of their property. So I would just argue that that is an extraordinary condition or circumstance. Number 2, the other extraordinary condition or circumstance, it's unique to the property. It's the same thing. These 2 things, the ravine was not created by the landowner, nor was the code in which we cannot have 2 property or 2 driveways. So I would say both of those are unique circumstances that are not the landowner's fault and they do not cause it. And like Jim stated, the rest are fine.
If I might, the ravine doesn't have anything to do with the construction that they're working with. That's in the backyard and not a part of the building, and that was not brought up whatsoever in our discussion at any time that we did that. So
Correct.
what's going on with what we're looking at.
And if I may, nor do the 2 driveways. They're using the existing driveway, and the presence of another driveway simply wasn't a factor in considering this. It's simply the size of the structure compared to what the code allows.
Correct, but what I'm saying is if they were to build a structure on another part of their property, they couldn't access it because they're not allowed to have another driveway. So if they were to follow our code and build another, we have a couple in the neighborhood that are separate structures from the existing garages. But they could not do that based on their location if they did not add another driveway. I mean, they could, but it wouldn't be accessible.
Right. The point being, they have plenty of room on this lot using the existing driveway and staying away from the ravine to put a very big structure on the lot. So the ravine and the driveways don't impact this at all. It's simply a question of the size.
Has anybody went over and looked at that lot?
What's that?
We have
Went
is
over and
a,
looked at that lot?
got a drawing of it that's on their picture, so.
Yeah.
We were over there.
We do
looking at it.
have,
I've looked at it.
in River Park, we have 85 lots, and they all range from 3/4 of an acre to close to 2, maybe over 2. For the most part, the minimum size is 3/4 of an acre. We do have one that's 0.97, and I think it's like 1,500 square feet garage that's attached. So I feel like, and we've had this question, I mean, it was cited before. We had a previous applicant resident that came to the commission and wanted to add a building on. And it falls into that 1 acre lot size, and so the lot, or this 1,000 square feet that we have today is, I don't want to say it's penalizing, but it is making it difficult. It doesn't have anything above 20,000 square feet to add substantial structure. In my opinion, I think the 20,000 square feet kind of predicated the 1,000 square foot, which is 5%. So between 20,000 and 1 acre, which is 43,000, those people don't have the flexibility to add property value by adding more than 1,000 square foot garage or attachment building. So in one way, I can appreciate the comment about the 1,000 square feet, but at the same time, it's definitely raised the issue, awareness of what it would take, and I think the council did receive a memo from Phil late this afternoon, middle of the afternoon, identifying striking a linear, at least from 0 to 1 acre, the shortcomings of not being able to use the property to improve.
I didn't get that.
I didn't get anything like that.
Either.
You had a conversation with him and you
Oh,
responded.
I'm sorry.
with-
So yes,
Renee and I were copied on that.
You're right. Okay, I misspoke. I thought that was But it emphasizes the point that we're talking about, I guess that's everything from, I'll just share briefly, from 20,000 to 1 acre. At 1,000 square feet, it's a pictorial showing what the current spec is today of 1,000 square feet up to 1 acre.
Then again, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to follow what we've got for our code that's been established for Orinoco.
As it is right now.
As it is
Yeah.
right now, and the variances they are right now, which is in code and in writing. We're looking at changing the code. In which case, we understand what you're trying to do, and we're not trying to be difficult with that at P and Z. But we're trying to maintain right now what we have and we have to deal with. And so until that changes, and then we can turn around and take a look again without having to worry about what the conditions are for the variances. And that's part of a state statute, not just what we have right now. So we're again trying to follow everything that there is in code, in law, by what there is for variances on what we discussed. And Phil was in on all of those as well. So until that changes, and again, we put it as the top of our to be one of the things that we want to address right away, because it's, again, one of those things. Setting a precedence is what we're really concerned with right now until we get that changed in the code.
And I would say too, just to be clear, I don't think there was anyone on P and Z that didn't want to do this.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
like the idea behind it, just
But we
let
had to
us.
go based on the criteria that we have to make a recommendation for, if it was within, 100 feet. I mean, we've seen those things before,
Mhm.
but we have to go based on the code as it is. And do we want this to happen? Yeah, why not? I think we do. And that's why we said at PNC that we have to tackle that as soon as we possibly can to make that change. We know it's
And
not
those were
gonna
all
happen
in
overnight.
the minutes
So-
too, that you saw what
Yeah.
was going on. So, I mean, that's where our intent is,
Yeah,
but we need to get to that change.
Change is a very simple change
yeah.
Mhm.
because it's a matter of identifying 0 to 1 acre is
Yeah.
less than 5%, scratch the 1,000,
Yeah,
Mhm.
need a public hearing,
and that's
right?
And then that's all we need to do, but
timing on that. And the residents, what he has in place of wanting to start right away too, so.
And I know we even talked about, even some credit on this whole variance thing. Because we wanted to pass it, but we couldn't. So therefore we said, okay, let's put this on the top of the list in terms of making a change. So if we can make that change, like you said, Ryland, it's a
Is there any
simple
way we
thing.
could, maybe Phil can answer this too, is there any way we could approve the variance pending change in language within 60 days, because I'm assuming by the time you schedule a public hearing, but we recognize in the motion that we.
Well, we have an attorney here too. I would not recommend, from a staff standpoint, I would not recommend going that route. I would, and I do know time is of the essence. I do know that the planning and zoning wants this moved up on the chain of, because we know the code book needs some changes, and this is clearly one that is a bit unfair because, like you mentioned, you had a lot in your neighborhood that's 0.97. Well, that's so close to being 1 acre, and the going from a 1,000 square feet up to, 2,000 square feet. I mean, that's a big jump. I mean, it needs to be stepped up and more realistic. And I know that doesn't help Jenna, and I do see your hand up, Jenna, too. But I know that doesn't help you at this point. I strongly support the planning and zoning's recommendation to deny, I would strongly encourage council to also act on that recommendation and in line with the planner's report and this is for planning and zoning, and knowing that we can't, that's not what a variance is for, to say, you're, you know, close, but we're gonna give it to you anyway. I think that's kind of why we have some of the anomalies we have throughout the city is the things that happened. And I think what planning and zoning is trying to do is really get the house in order. And we gotta start somewhere. And I know that kind of has fallen on my shoulders and that's fine, but that's where we gotta go. And I am thankful that planning and zoning recognizes their role and the council recognizes their role. The job is not to make decisions based on where we're going. Since days, a year from now, 5 years from now, it is what we have in place now. And we can certainly do what we can as staff to expedite. I don't know if we have enough time to even post for public hearing at the next planning and zoning meeting, but you know, to the extent that we can expedite it, we certainly will. And I did mention in a conversation with Councilor Richards that I, as staff, I'm open to looking at applying at least some of the application fee that you paid for the variance, either to new variance application deal or
We
whatever.
don't need a variance.
variance?
Change the code, we don't need a variance. That's the catch.
Well, depending on what the code is changed to, right? Oh, yeah, you'd be.
No, we don't, it's just a
It
circle.
would be
that-
with no
Yeah, it would
variance
be
is gonna be required.
If we,
That's
but
what
if we
we.
step it,
What is the definition of a variance? I mean, whether, like we talked at planning and zoning, whether it's 100 square feet or 1,000 square feet, like I'm asking. Why is there a slope for a 100 square foot addition, but not a 1,000 square foot addition? Variance. What is the definition of variance?
And what is the concern of the city of approving a variance today, knowing that we won't need one in the state?
Well, is where the difference is. A variance wouldn't be required as long as what you have fits inside the code. But we have to follow what the code is. So I understand your question that there is on why would you have to pay for a second variance? I understand that part that goes along with it. The other thing that there is, and I know that you put some money down, is it gets to be a situation where Phil has got to get involved with this as we do these things to go through and do the write-up that he did do on what was going on to take a look at this. And, you know, that does cost money to be able to do it. And if you absorb everything with the city that way, then everybody that lives in Orinoco is paying for your variance that you want to have a look at, instead of the person that wants to do the variance, which is what you were trying to do.
Why does Bill get to actually applied or approved or denied? He's not a city council member. He's not elected official. Why does he get to kind of vote his opinion on whether or not a variance is actually applied?
Phil is our expert that we have that goes through everything as an engineer and looks at everything that's involved. And the city has with him that's who we use for everybody, not just you. And so Phil is somebody that we highly respect on what his comments are and the work that he's done. And so yeah, Phil is a part of what there is, if you want to look at it as part of our staff that we call from.
Oh, if I may speak,
What
What was the time frame in which we had this conversation before? It hasn't been that long, a year? This has come up recently. No lot size, and it hasn't been that long.
We talked about downsizing from 20,000 square feet.
Well, no,
But I don't.
if there was hard to follow the meeting last night because, or whenever, so many people talk at once. But I believe you were having a conversation about that this had just come up recently, or not that long ago, maybe a year ago. So my concern is we haven't taken between then and now.
We did at that
So-
point. We had changed, because there was a shed. Someone had 10 acres, wanted a shed.
Okay.
And they said, okay, based on your zoning code right now, I can have 1,000 square foot per acre. So I could have 10,000, I could have a shed on each acre, that's 10,000 square feet. What's that? Total, yep, he said I could have 10,000 square feet, and it didn't make sense the way the code was put together. They said, okay, we're gonna take a look at that. We denied it. We reworked the code, just like we're suggesting we do here. Reworked the code. They came back. They didn't have to have a variance because they wanted a variance as well. And it totally made sense, just like this makes sense.
That's before my time,
Sure.
but
It's,
So we
what
took
I'm finding
immediate
is that we
action.
know, it's just frustrating, you know, I'm not on. Knowing what you know about this code and how there's so many things, why haven't we taken action before now? Because this is just
Dana, I just.
on this particular, like on our
Well,
housing.
it's,
So
you don't,
like, I guess what is, how can we reassure our citizens that they aren't going to be applying for variance? You know, that they can do very, and not on their own property. I just want to make sure that our citizens are happy living here and that it makes sense. And how can we reassure them? I mean, I know we say we're going to, but if we're just gonna piecemeal it like this time.
well,
What is the plan?
the code book is about this.
I have it right here.
Yeah, and so you understand what we're talking about.
But I mean,
Okay.
it's been, I mean,
Let's do
it's,
another page.
I just want to make sure that we're not just giving lip service, that we're gonna actually do something. So I really, I want it done as soon as possible. Next, the earliest possible public hearing, let's do it. I don't. I hate the fact that we can't let somebody. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. In a community like ours, in a lot the size as it is, it's absurd. You know, if you walk around that neighborhood, there's L-shaped garages everywhere and not all of them, definitely not all of them are an acre, you know.
I get it. And you know
So
what?
it's very hard for me to.
React on everything at every point in time that we need to, but we can't be in the reactive state of mind on everything that we do. I mean,
I think
you've
we
got the
can
code book in
actually.
front of you.
I think we
So-
can, right? We can react to this. We can say this is wrong. We want our.
There's
This
also a
is
situation where if you have a code that's there, everything means. And that's part of. You're trying to follow a code. Not just, you know, everybody want to have something different that they want to have for a variance for everything. That's why you have a code.
Right, I would disagree that, I don't think that has anything to do with what makes Orinoco. I think we're a lot more fun and exciting than that. But, I just, yeah, my recommendation would be to move on this as soon as possible. I think it's an absolute disservice to our citizens, the way we have. So,
I don't know about
Well, again, we have to go with. Sonny, what we're doing is.
That's what I was asking,
Oh,
Sonny,
okay.
how long? You gotta know to have a notice.
Sorry.
Huh?
Go ahead, you were talking.
I was asking Sonny, how long do they gotta have a notice before public hearing for?
We have to do it at least
Well,
10 days
Don't
in
you need to know what
advance
you want to
of.
change it to first?
Right.
Take
Kind
it
of-
out.
And to answer your question too, is it has been chopped. You react by changing one section for the one example that came before planning and zoning commission. My approach is more not just one line. 10 acres. Lot sizes and see how they come together too. You need at least 10 days. One.
I'm with Dana, you know, I was going through all these fields, they could have a garage next door. You know, I mean, trying to get something ahead. As one word Phil says it's gotta be took out. I mean. I think that's pretty.
And I think, Carl, that's what we're saying, is we're saying, look at that one. To Dana's point, we can't do everything and then make our decision. And, you know, because the code is the code. We have more to do than go through and decide what code we can update, because we have the P and Z issues and things that we have to do. But I'm totally for, and I think all P and Z was, to look at this one and say, hey, we need to change that. We do. And you know how it is. You are on P and Z. We're in a reactive mode in some respects. And when these things surface, we take that opportunity and make that change and other things along with it.
Well, and I feel a little bit sorry for the people.
I do.
Cause
I
they were
totally
led,
do.
a bad bill of goods. And so now they're gonna suffer because of the bad bill of goods that our Oakwood did. So I think we owe them. You know, I don't think we ought to wait till fall to give them an answer. I think give them an answer just as soon as possible.
I think we have to update that code quick so we can have the public hearing. Recommending through the publiuk hearing, and then they're free to.
Then you're
to look
talking
at-
2 months down the road.
Well, I think that's something that Phil shared with me, and I apologize for not having it sent to everybody, but I do think there is some rationale for, it's just a 0 to 1 acre is really the big steps, you know, you go from 1 acre to 2 acres, and your background from Phil and from his experience, what he would recommend moving up, you know, from 1 acre to 2 acres, I mean, there's some place for. Yes, that's where we need Phil's recommendation. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, if I can just jump in here, I think this would be a relatively easy fix. If you start tinkering with an entire zoning ordinance and all the pieces that are interrelated, it can get very complicated very quickly. This is not one of those issues. This is a very easy thing where we can see exactly where the numbers ought to be, and there's probably 2 or 3 different ways you could accomplish it, and it could be done very quickly. So if that's the direction you want to go, I would certainly help you as quickly and efficiently as possible get that done. And I think it wouldn't have to be a complicated affair.
So, Mayor, can I just say just a few things on it?
Fine.
Is that a yes?
Mike, I don't think he heard you. Mike wants to say a few things.
Oh, of course, Mike, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I can speak up. You're all breaking up just a little bit. I can hear 90% of what's being said. I don't know what Phil's experience is there, but so when you get something like this, I mean, it's very common. In my experience, it's relatively common to amend the code when the council receives, for example, a conditional use permit application when there is no listed conditional use for the particular use that the applicant is requesting. You know, your options then are to deny it or to just simply amend the code. And quite, frequently, the council will just amend the code instead of even dealing with the application. The 60-day rule applies, but they can do a public hearing and bring an amendment to the city council within 30 days or so to add that conditional use, or in this case, change a variance standard or a square footage, garage square footage, So it's what I'm saying is that, if that's in the future, this is more like training for the future. So if the planning commission decides that's what they want to do, you can just table the variance altogether and not even deal with it. And then instead spend your time amending the code and, bring that to council first and that, extend the 60-day rule if you need to. You have 120 days. Typically, you can do a simple code amendment within that time period. So I don't think that's always intuitive. A lot of times people think because you have an application that therefore you have to immediately first act on the application and then do the amendment, when really you can do those things at the same time. I think, you can process the application and explain it and then decide. And so that's one, just, I think, future teaching point. And the other thing is, you want to be a little careful about granting it now, because you're going to change the code anyway, because it is a simple fix. I think I have not looked at this issue at all, but there is something to be said for actually reviewing, setting what the limits will be. For example, you might change the limits, the square footage limits of accessory structures, if that's what this is, or total square footage of accessory structures, something like that. But the applicant's proposal still may not fit into what you change it to. In other words, you might look at 10 other cities and they might suggest 1,500 square foot instead of 1,000 square foot, and this proposed garage is still more than that. So there is a little bit of work to, like, when you're changing something like this, you're not changing it just for these people, you're changing it for the whole city, so you want to make sure that it fits,
So
fits.
yeah, backing on that, Mike, how can we make it so that this doesn't happen again, so that our citizens are given good information when they come in?
Well, you can't. I don't know that they were given bad information. I think.
Well, I think, or any information, you know what I mean? Like, make sure that we say, here's, before you apply, this is where you can find the code. This is,
Right.
This is what we're gonna look at. I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. So I recently, I had a personal experience in Rochester. I'm building a sauna in my backyard, wood burning sauna. So I emailed the planning and zoning people in Rochester, and they sent me all the information that I needed, I guess. Because I didn't
Before you
know-
applied?
I don't need to apply. There's no,
I'm just wondering if that isn't the direction that our citizens should go, is that they should contact PNC before they apply.
well, and I think this is in your code. I haven't read it in a while, but I think there's something called a zoning determination. And so, Sonny, I presume, I guess, would be the person. I don't know who this person is, but the zoning administrator, if that's referenced in your code, most cities have a reference to a zoning administrator. And that person can just make informal decisions on zoning code, for example.
Or just, guide somebody in a way.
Well, but and it sounds like, I was not involved in this at all, but it kind of sounds like it wasn't immediately known. It's not like the applicants in this case came in and said, we need a variance. I think they came in and said, we want to build a garage. And then it's up to the guy like that received my email about my sauna to go read through the code and figure out, in this huge unified development code in Rochester, it's like 200 pages, can you have an outdoor wood burner? How big can it be? What's a permanent structure? Is it an accessory structure? There's all kinds of things. So that's easier said than done, Dana. I think the council's making it out like that, that was just, you can snap your fingers and give that opinion. And there's a lot more to thinking through it than that. And I think it is good. What I would say is good to have a process. So when somebody comes in.
Right. I just want to make sure that as the city grows and as, we want to make sure people can stay in their homes. That's a huge, huge thing right now, especially for our aging population. And likely there will be things that need to be amended in their homes. I want to make this process as easy as possible. So we have to do better. just as a everybody involved, as far as giving out information, as far as, you know, not leading somebody to believe that this is a simple project that will get approved. I think that was a
I agree with you. They shouldn't be doing that. I mean, I think anytime the staff is looking at something like you're allowed 1,000 square foot and you want to build 1,800, you know, no promises should be made. I mean, that's a large variance, obviously. So
And I
that's gonna.
You said you say so.
Yeah, I just speaking on behalf of staff, I mean, we do our best to provide as much information as we possibly can. We inherited some materials for the most part, excuse me, I think they are solid. We are tweaking them, we are making them better, but we do not have a vote on some of these decisions. And the best that we can do, including Phil, is evaluate what's presented to us. And Casey started the ball by looking at the building application. He knows our code well enough to know that this is based on his lot size. So he's done some work as well. And if this doesn't get a permit pulled on it to get built, he's already invested time in that's lost. Conversely, still has invested some time that we have this small variance fee of $250, and now it's going to be $800 as effective April 1st. But that still may or may not cover Phil's time. And then Renee and I have had time invested in it as well, checking the code and making sure, because that's not the one thing that we get to do all day long either. We get to do that in addition to 10 other things, and I'm not belaboring that because I absolutely love my work, but it's not, we don't ever make any guarantees because we can't. There are no guarantees to it, but I would just push back on the idea that we're steering them badly. Anyway.
If I may, Mayor and Council, just in terms of process, what's happened here is common in all cities, that someone prepares a set of plans and they're submitted to the city. And sometimes, many times, the builders and the contractors know the code well enough that before those plans even hit the desk, they know that they're going to need a variance. That happens in most of the cities I work with. I work with 9 different cities in Minnesota doing exactly this kind of thing. So that's what happened here. The plans were submitted. The builder didn't say they needed a variance. It was up to the building official to catch it. And so there's one piece of it. So there is some due diligence that I think we should expect from the people who are proposing these projects. Otherwise, then it goes through the process. The building official sees it, the planner will see it, maybe the attorney is asked to look at it, and then it comes out. And it may not be immediately apparent what is needed in the process, but all along, we need to follow our codes. We can't just be making the rules up as we go along or allowing things to happen that aren't following the codes that have been duly adopted.
And Mike, I have one question, and Philip probably has. I'm thinking that one way that we could expedite an ordinance amendment is to have the proposal go to planning and zoning at the next at their next meeting, early May. And then have the actual public hearing scheduled for the council's meeting, have them do the public hearing rather than planning and zoning. But the recommendation on the language will actually come out of planning and zoning. And action could occur
May 18th.
as quickly as May 18th. Is that,
Well, why wouldn't you be able to do that? I mean,
Oh.
you have to have, you have to have a public hearing that's noticed by 10 days. I think that's in the statute. You have to follow what's in your ordinance somewhere. I mean, your ordinance might say the planning commission holds the public hearing. I don't know what it says. But you have to follow that. I don't think it matters if you have, but under state statute, I don't think it matters if you have a public hearing before the planning commission or the council.
and if I remember correctly, before I started going to planning and zoning and we got this full complement of membership, you had trouble with some quorums so that the public hearings on matters were at the council meeting as opposed to planning and zoning anyway. So it has occurred in the past.
Yeah, I think the statute might say the planning agency, but ultimately, I think you just need to have one public hearing before either body, unless your code specifically says the planning commission, which it might. I don't know what it says.
Yeah, and if I may, Mayor and Council, maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves here. It sounds
Right.
like we're trying to work towards this, and rather than try and figure out the details here, if you give direction to staff, to myself and Sonny and Mike to say, figure out how to get this a code amendment in front of planning and zoning and the council as soon as possible, we can do that.
So, and also if you haven't, I mean, honestly, if you haven't expired the 60 days yet, you could vote against it tonight, or you could just table it, and then extend the 60 days in anticipation of changing the code, obviating the need for the variance at all.
Yeah, the 60 days isn't up until May 6th, so that could be extended into July with
Well,
written notice to the application.
Into August, that wouldn't it be 60 days?
No, from May
No,
to June
May,
to July.
July. Okay, I'm just, sorry, it's late night. Yeah.
Yes.
So that might be what you should do. And then you can always deny it at the next meeting, or if you've changed your code at the next meeting, you can, then it won't matter. It'll be.
But just to be clear for the applicants, if we go this route and if it all goes through successfully, it should be done well before July. It's just that state statute allows us to push it off until July.
So I guess you make a good point about tabling it. I know the owners were looking for direction tonight, but I sense that's not the case going to happen. And I think rather than voting on something that could potentially visit again,
Isn't the statute?
it might be,
Don't we have 30 days?
No, we've got longer than that. We've got 60 days.
60 days. Yeah.
Is that-
Plus an additional 60 days. So really you have 120 days.
120 days total, so.
Yeah.
Not gonna take that. I mean, again, it's something that we've been trying to work for to try to get this taken care of.
So I'm wondering if we shouldn't consider tabling it. I know that that's not what the president wants to hear, but at the same time, from a council's perspective, we need to make efficient use of our time and vote on a denial and cancel it, and then
Well, do want,
back again. So I guess
do want to give Phil and Mike and Sonny permission to work on getting an amendment to come at planning and zoning?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, if you're interested in a suggestion, you could make a motion to continue this item, to direct staff to extend the 60 days, an additional 60 days, and to work together to come up with a code amendment, to get it in front of planning zoning as soon as possible to address this situation on size of accessory buildings.
so. I make a motion that we proceed with extending the application 60 days from May 6th. And ask that Sonny works with the Planning and Zoning Commission to address the chart on accessory building and lot size at the May 9th planning and zoning meeting. No, I'm sorry, May 11th. In preparation. Or let's see. Do we take a public hearing on the 11th then? Planning and zoning or after?
Council meeting.
I don't think we have
We have
enough.
time if we put it in by Friday, but I don't know if we can do a public hearing if they don't know what they're gonna change it to.
And we gotta have time to work out a P and Z. You know, so.
Yeah, because we got.
And have a public hearing at the May 16th council meeting.
Yeah.
It's 6:35. On the May 16th, I have a public hearing then. Is there anything else that should be stated in the motion?
No, the only thing I would also bring up, I don't remember, but does Orinoco require 2 readings to pass an ordinance? Or just 1 reading? Can you, if you have that at the May council meeting, can you have the public hearing, introduce the ordinance and adopt it all at the same meeting? Does anybody know that?
I think
Yeah,
we have
why
to
don't-
publish twice.
That's just publishing it. He's time, and you have to read it and then.
I think we only have to, and we can double check tomorrow, but I think we have to publish twice, read only once.
Yeah,
So,
state law doesn't require 2 readings, but some cities, if they're charter cities particularly, but other statutory cities have multiple reading requirements, which you don't. I don't think you do. I just don't remember. It's been a long time since we've done an ordinance, so. Why don't you just move with that path and we'll just see what we can do here.
right.
And Mike and council, should the motion also specifically state that you're continuing this item to a future meeting?
Extra 60.
Yeah. Your most, it's a motion to postpone would be, tabling means you're tabling first, this actually it could be tabled to that specific date, May 16th or 18th, whatever it was.
It's clear.
I got it.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let's, I think that's about the best we can do. Not what I was hoping, but at the same time, we need to, follow our statute and, keep the emotion out of it, but it's hard to do that. I know you're anxious to do something. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So that's kind of our direction right now. So it's been tabled, we'll bring it back at the P and Z meeting and then another public hearing with the changes that come out of P and Z at the beginning of the May 16th public hearing or council meeting.
So, I mean, if they just take the verbiage out of the 1,000, right, and that's what you guys are changing, and it's a 5% rule, under 5%.
I think you're going to see it.
Good, correct?
In my opinion, I think you'll probably see the 1,000-foot go away and just go with percentage, or at least for the first 2 acres or something like that. I don't know what they're going to come up with for sure, but
Yeah.
I think the 1,000 will
But the
go away.
variance is like, it doesn't matter.
We would
because
need
the-
a variance.
Would need a variance at that point.
Right.
No, well,
Table and the
It
variance.
depends on where you change.
I'm gonna
We
say,
gotta wait to.
To be determined.
I'm gonna say that's to be determined because. Because you two will
Yeah,
have a vote.
we gotta be
but
very
you
careful.
will
We
have-
don't lock ourselves into
Yeah.
something here in what we're saying.
We will be at
but-
that meeting.
Yeah. So, yeah, we just have to be careful. We can't.
Okay,
We're only 2 of 7, so.
okay. Parks and Trails. Quick update on the peninsulas. I think from emails was shared with the council. Right now, I'm waiting for the district manager for Region 6, which is Southeast Minnesota. Mark Schuldenfielder to respond back to me. He's aware of the agreement that was made back in 2016 that in lieu of the city or the county purchasing the peninsulas, MnDOT would install the fence along Highway 52. And that's what was the agreement with Tom Canan, who is the attorney for the county at that time, assistant attorney. And a gentleman from the MnDOT, so they're going to work through those details, and if I haven't heard anything back from him this week, I'll follow up with him next week, make sure that's moving along. I did preface my conversation with Mr. Schoenfelder that we have a master plan for the Lake Shady. And thank you for the Lake Shady and Lake Bed. And we can't do anything until there's a fence in place, so.
And are the trails gonna be mowed all the way this year because there's no equipment down there? Okay, just wanted to double check. So that'll give everybody a chance to go check it out, you know, what we're talking about too, like.
You're talking about the west side of the river?
Lake Shady.
Well, no, I'm talking about our side, but then you can kind of visualize
I'll send that map to you, see
Yeah.
where it's at.
right.
They've identified where the red line is at for the right of way fence and the property, so. Porta potties. There's a quote from on site.
Sorry. Yeah, if you look at the porta potties for this year, you'll see, option 1 and 2 are gonna be they would be my most favorable options. It's up to the council if you wanna go through. I can call on site tomorrow morning, get them out here as early as Monday, April 24th through end of October or November 6th. Or option 1, we could start May 1st. I'll leave that up to council. But I would recommend on-site as the least expensive option.
I think the May 1st is fine.
Okay.
We might, who knows, this
Okay.
year, I feel like I'll make a
Use
motion,
on-site for Gold Rush too then?
depends.
No, they'll be here.
We always go up for bids.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the on-site
Okay.
bid.
Any other comments? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
And you said option 1.
Option 1 for $4,932. Community center.
Did we vote? I'm sorry. Did we vote on that?
I thought we did.
Motion second,
Daniel and Carl,
right? But I don't remember the vote.
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, it's approved.
Hold on the border pots. Okay,
I like your memo, Renee. Oh.
There's a, I'd like the possibility of obtaining a quote for a chair lift on our steps going up. And I learned a lot. One, that it's a public building. And for us to install a chair lift. Talked to several stores and companies in Rochester, and they directed me towards a couple of people. One was Access Lift, another was Earl Lift in public buildings, but then you also have to submit a $70 application to the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. The one company that I was dealing with said they don't get very many approvals through the review board. The next company that I talked to, they gave us a quote for $6,700. They said they've had good luck with getting them passed, so. I think it's, and I would propose that we use the ARP funds, American Rescue Plan funds, for the $6,750.
And this lift is just for going up and not down.
Just going
Not
up.
go downstairs, it's just the upstairs right now.
I think going down has to be 47 inches wide, or 41 inches, something like that. That's why we're just looking at the one going up. The very basic installations. I know we're looking at a couple things improving, using the definitely office space upstairs, but also the history center as well, as well as access to the history center. For those residents, it's not a elevated, it's not a vertical or a incline lift or wheelchairs, but hopefully the person does come in a wheelchair, they have somebody that would carry the lift chair or carry the wheelchair up the steps because they could not carry it up there on the chairlift. And if you look at an incline lift, it's like $25,000 or $30,000. So, but with our minimal use, this is kind of an entry level application, I think, and so.
Yeah, I think we should definitely apply. It's moving in the right direction. We know that we need better services for people with mobility issues in our community, and this is a good step in the right direction.
In the packet, I don't know if you got colored copies, but there are points in that review, that application that they did install, cost, the manufacturer, width of the wheel, width of the chair folded. And we have to fill in some reasons for using it. Why we can't use a platform lift, structurally, we don't have the space to do that with a community building.
Make sure you provide the age of our building,
Age of the building.
the age of the building and I do think mentioning the history center, I don't know if that's even on here, that the reason or whatever, but yeah, specifically state, I think, if community events are held up there, they hold evenings where they have pie nights and ice cream. We're potentially keeping people from attending because of the accessibility.
When I got this, I was gonna say, when I saw the picture, I thought, oh no. But then I did see that there's some color options, so.
That's not very attractive.
No, that's
Picture.
just, it would blend into the building for sure, but it's like, oh no. So are you looking for a motion then to do the application?
Yeah, I think that's his first step before we spend, because there's no spends motioning for something we can buy. I make a motion that we approve sending in an application to the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry, which is a review board, ultimately is the name of it. But, second. I can, when I get back from vacation, I can give my swag at some of the comments if you want to take a look at it as well and add to it, whatever, and we get that sent off next week then. Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will send an email to the gentleman, I think it was, and let him know that we're going to proceed with the application. We'll see what the response is. Okay. Next item was a sign, an LED electronic message board. I went out to 4 companies. The Cross Sign Company, our local Chad Tracy, Fast Signs, and Rochester Sign. The Rochester Sign and Fast Signs have not responded yet, so I don't know if we're going to or not. Little sticker shock. But two quotes that we do have. One is from La Crosse and the other is Shad Tracy that you hadn't seen the copies of the Shad Tracy one. There's a little bit of difference in the proposals. The La Crosse one had two basically posts on the outside edge. Both of them is a 2 foot by 7 foot, 16 millimeter pixels on it. This is the same size that Grace Lutheran Church has outside their church. They use big letters. The reason for that is so people with Minnesota Avenue can see it, which you can't. You can't see it.
Mhm.
So that was the main reason for,
And that would be an option with this as well.
this is a 2 by 7 also. We can
Right.
use multi-lining,
Right.
3 lines, one big line.
Right.
It comes with the color package,
Right.
Easter bunnies and stuff like that. You
Okay.
can stuff like
Okay.
that. Nixon. So that one came in at, so we were looking at a single sided, basically replaced this community manual one that we have out on the corner. A 2-sided probably wouldn't work very well because of the trees.
Right.
And a 2-sided one over at Memorial Park off Lake Shady Avenue. Memorial Park there by 12th Street, someplace there. There we was thinking one proposal is we can do a 2-sided or one side. But we thought that there's plenty open area, you can see it from both directions. And a 2-sided might be better for that size. So the La Crosse sign group was 25,775 for single and 33,655 for a double. The Shad Tracy. Same type of thing, it's 2 foot by 7 panel, 16 millimeter. They took a little bit different approach. In their picture, it's a brick base. Supporting a 2 foot by 7 foot LED panel. In both cases, La Crosse and Shad, the city of Orinoco is backlit. So it's, they call it routed and backed, which means it's slided, so the white print would come through. And they show it with a brick base. It's really a single pole that goes down into a wood structure, and then it's lined with bricks. And a big footing along the bottom of it. I did go back to Shad Tracy today. Be comparable to the La Crosse one of what would be with just a pole, single pole, but with no brick. Kind of put them a little bit closer in comparison in cost to the La Crosse sign. I was hoping for a response tonight, but nothing.
So there's
Never
no
came through.
brick on the La Crosse at all.
What's that?
There's no brick on the La Crosse.
No, it's just it's two.
I couldn't tell
two
if that,
metal posts or
oh yeah, I thought maybe that was. Brick.
like an 8-inch pole or something like that. 8-inch diameter down at the bottom of the picture.
It's just a wood or composite or something.
Maybe metal.
It's metal, you
It's a
think?
Cement column or if it's a steel, I'm assuming it's a steel post, but I don't know that.
Okay.
The one thing about the city of Orinoco is they took some liberty to put in the O. With the river and a couple of trees in it, and that would be their. That'd be their design. If we wanted to use it in some other place, we could, but we have to get permission or have to pay for that, but I told them we've been talking maybe about having a branding program here in the future, but nothing that we,
I'd rather leave it plain.
keep it old,
Right, and if we're gonna do anything, we should do the bridge. That we have on our. Letterhead, like a memo or something that Renee, you know what I mean?
Right now, we,
I think it'd be, yeah, it'd be a little bit too much for right now.
Right. So I would not go with any sort of.
I don't know, it's,
No logo. Thanks for the effort, but no, thank you.
so the idea, so the two of them together. And if we may want to do a step program, we may want to do just this one here first. There's about $1,770 difference between the two. On the single one here. And it might be a little bit less if we were to take the brick off. Of the Chad Tracy. And it may make it more adding the brick. To the lacrosse one too.
Do you know if,
Yeah, I would personally, I'd like to see if there isn't a way that we can be very competitive with Shad Tracy to give them the business since they're here in Orinoco.
Well, it's,
right,
I can appreciate that, and I, you know, that's why I went through the exercises to get some bids, just to see. How well they do line up, and I think they do. They're a little bit. They use two different, the lacrosse uses a Tektronix or. The two vendors. Shad Tracy uses a Watchfire. If you're familiar with Rochester Lutheran Schools on Elton Hills, they have a message board. That's the same 2 foot by 7 foot. Yep. Be very just exactly like that as well. You can see that really good going down Elton Hills.
do you know if I know the lacrosse signs, we're in charge of taking out the current sign and footings. I'm not finding that on Sean Tracy's.
That's a good. I'm assuming that we would. So there is a prospective user of that sign. Maybe. I'm sorry, wants to comment, Mike took off, but
Yeah.
so we've been approached from the Lions Club. That they may want to use that sign. And over Michael's Waterworks, for posting Lions activities.
Yeah, they've been looking for an
It's a good sign. It was built in 2003. It's in really good condition. Been under trees the whole time, so.
That's a good cause.
It's not fading too much or anything like that. So it doesn't have. So we have electrical power out there to the sign now, so that would work with either sign here. In the case of Memorial Park, we'd have to. Install a transformer and run a line, put a meter on it.
Can we do solar on that by chance, like what we're doing, do solar?
Memorial.
I crossed that mind, but I don't know if there's enough. Much solar panel it would take.
Memorial would work, but not here.
Was that
Memorial Field would work. But not-
Memorial Field? Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Out
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, not here.
That would help. That cost $600 for a transformer. You know what the meter would run? Is that people's meter too?
Yeah.
It's just the line we have to install.
Correct.
Well, and we put that street light.
Yeah, there's a meter or not a meter, a transformer
Oh,
for
yeah.
the street
Yeah.
light.
That's right.
That may be.
That's a ways away though.
Poles down.
Yeah.
What might be a second.
One pole before the line goes underneath.
Do we want to wait and see what Todd Tracy comes back with?
Yeah, I think,
Or are we in a
and my,
time crunch?
both companies, lacrosse, I talked to the representative, he came out here. Chad Tracy, they brought out the company that they've used, Watchfire, so they put up a panel, what it looked like, and they're both 16 millimeter pixels. You can go a little bit sharper for a 10 millimeter, but it's about 15–20% more cost, but this sign is 16 is size, so. I know the people from lacrosse are saying just, make sure you're fair, your quotes. I said, I can appreciate that. So
Make what?
make sure the quotes are compatible. So it equals. So this is brick versus his 2 posts. So if we get single post, his
Right.
2 posts, that's about as best we're going to get, I think. So.
Right, okay.
And to go any more as far as pixels go, you're looking at it from a distance. And so I don't think you're gonna tell the difference off of that, so.
It's, look at Grace Lutheran when you're going home. That's several hundred feet away and you just drive by, you know, and. Or look at the one on Elton Hills Drive, messages come through. Now, we do have this ordinance. About every 10 seconds, LEDs have to change messages, so it's really 10 seconds, you can drive by it, so it's. Intervals, it has to. So. Yeah,
Have you checked the sign ordinance?
that's where I found the LED. That's where I found the 10-second message on it, so.
Just check.
Everybody look at the sign ordinance. We can table it. We use ARP money. Right now we have about $78,000. If they wanted to shed Tracy for both of them, it's 64,000. Across is 59, but if we take off, try and get to equal, you know, it may be a wash, but I know that we also had talked about using the American Rescue Plan money for the sewer installation to the restrooms in Orinoco Park. That was kind of talked about that in our budget meeting as a possibility for that too. So we may want to do one this year and see what happens and put it into the CUP. Might be a little bit costlier next year or 2 years from now, but I do think the idea of the two-sided play, as we talked about, just kind of make the west side inclusive. And I think the community side would help in that messaging and so they're aware of it, so.
I agree, I like it, I agree.
When I was driving in from Rochester this morning, I noticed the sign out there kind of has two bricks and then it kind of has like a bubble on top.
Little bit of a crest.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we looked at that, but we didn't do that because the cost of doing that,
okay,
the expensive bending that is.
okay.
So that's
So
right.
that's why we're
Yeah,
going
yeah.
with.
If we did the brick, I would match that brick that's on the two welcome signs to the base on this one too. We can still get that stone brick, so
Okay.
I can bring this back in May. Want to?
And then that way we'll at least have the other bid to be able to take a look at, but.
Okay, I'll make a motion. We table the message board until the May meeting.
Who seconded that? I'm sorry, Earl.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Staffing update. Seasonal staff. Project specialist admin.
Yeah, we, our admin assistant starts May 1st. We had a couple of snafus with the project specialist, so I'm still thinking whether to repost that or I will repost it, but maybe tweak it as well. But the bigger thing is we have posted for the seasonal staff. And I'm requesting approval for Kane and I to have the ability to, again, interview them and make offers and get them started as quickly as possible.
ASAP.
The deadline for application is Thursday.
Didn't we look at this before? I was going back a couple months ago. Hey, or not?
Yeah, we looked at February initially.
Yeah, for getting approval to move ahead, yeah, so.
And I understood that was just for full-time public works
I thought that
and
was
the
for,
two part-time people. I know we kind of mentioned
That's
in
right, it was just two,
three.
or three, okay.
It's on the January 17th agenda.
We're kind of,
that we
I know,
talked about.
and we listened to it, but it was still wasn't clear to me and I didn't get a chance to re-listen to it, so. So just to clarify,
And I would ask, can we make this easier and just say, because we know every year we hire two seasonal.
We have three now.
Or three. Yeah, can we have it where we just know that we've got these, that we hire these three and just go ahead and do it and not have to bring it here, but if there's a deviation from that, bring it back to council,
well,
so we don't have to wait.
well, and if you remember too, in the budget, we actually budgeted for 4.
Mhm.
Because there was some thought about, staggering
Yeah,
them, maybe to do the work, 2 days a week and, whatever. So there is, and that's why there's that within the parens there, you see within the budget. So, I trust Kane to know what his staffing needs are gonna be.
yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying, Sonny.
Yeah.
If we know it's a minimum of 3, can we give the approval so that doesn't have to happen every year? Maybe we budgeted 4, but we approve the 3 because we know each year we're gonna need those 3. And I would say Kane will know if he doesn't need 3, he'll let us know. And likewise, if we need 4, then that's the exception. The 1 is the exception. Otherwise, we just know each year, go ahead and hire those 3 and get that underway so we don't have to bring it to council.
Well, and last year the budget was for 2.
Yeah.
And he ended up with 3.
Mhm.
So you ended up with 1 unbudgeted, I'm gonna say,
Yeah,
person. And then we did some tweaking to their wages beyond that when Gavin came back. So, and
I'm just
I'm
looking to
the-
make things.
well, and I'm just the finance person. I'm always tied to the budget. So when not, I guess, like that would have surprised me last year. If, I would have said to you, the budget only has 2. The budget has 2. And knowing that there's some flexibility, but I like budgets are budgets to
Yeah,
me.
and
And if I'm monitoring him and I'm holding him accountable to manage it, then I think we need to make sure that we're staying with it. We do know the 4th one. The 4th position was in part because we thought we were gonna operate with a different plan. Kane has now committed to working with 3 that he had last year.
Yeah,
So if we do that, that's fine.
yeah, that's what I'm saying is we know we have a default of 3. Maybe we budgeted for 4, but can we agree and give Kane that ability to just automatically go for those 3 seasonal positions each year. But even though we did 4, and if it comes up that, hey, I need an extra person, then that comes to council, that extra person, not the defaulted 3.
Well, the only thing is, I'm thinking of, okay, so if you're looking at, getting these peninsulas and maybe doing some more park work kind of stuff and maintenance out at the facility, the wastewater treatment facility, as things change, you may have changes that you need to see from a budget standpoint every year. Now, if you're saying that as part of that budgeting process, in approving the budget, we also approve X number of hires for these kind of things within the budget. Yeah, that makes
I
sense.
think we just need to be. We have the awareness now.
Yeah,
I just think we need to be prudent because there is interviewing involved with it and scheduling, so that's
Yeah.
still involved. So I still think there's some coordination between the 2 of us, just a matter of doing it sooner. So we have people in place mid-April, so they can start, and hopefully we can start one day, I don't know. If it's
That's. my
candidates have now, but
expectation is
they're free to do that. So.
Yeah. I'm expecting May 1 hires yet.
Okay. At the time of conversation, I think just needs to remind in our budget process that we
Yeah,
take to heart what we're gonna do.
and so maybe it's at that point that we make that
That shift.
motion and say, hey, he can hire when the time comes.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the authorization for us to do that is.
Oh, I make a motion. We approve, the city administrator and the public works director to hire and interview the seasonal staff.
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, sign. Organizational chart. I give us an update with this, EDA director box. And line, and I see the personnel committee has a dotted line. You want to explain it real quick?
Yeah, the difference between what I just handed out and what was in your packet is the solid line then that goes from the personnel committee to a step above me to council.
Can you explain the difference between the different lines?
The dotted line is really, paths of escalation. How people for personnel related items. So those that connect for,
So it's more staff.
yes,
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you. That's all I needed to know.
Okay,
I don't know why I didn't put that together before. I looked at this and I'm like, what's the significance? That was not hard, Dana.
Right.
No.
and then just the other thing that, okay, so now the EDA is, I did make that change, so it's a full-fledged committee in the right same color as the others. The other thing that I would make sure that everybody knows is that I authorize the city to utilize consulting staff, attorney, engineer, planner, those kinds, so we don't have everybody calling on those people. I need to rein in those costs because those are the things that will send a budget.
So before so it always has to go through, we send it to you and then if you can't answer it, then you will forward it on to
Yes.
Mike
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
Joe or Phil or, okay.
And to their credit, I'm gonna say Mike and Joe and Phil have been good. About recognizing that, you know, Joel, send me an email. This resident has contacted me. Tell me, you know, what you want me to do with it.
Yeah.
I think it's one point of contact, and
Yeah.
that one point of contact knows what all of the consultants are agreeing for.
Right. Otherwise, you end up with the mayor having a conversation with the planner and getting some information. That's not there.
You know, it's interesting, I don't. We'll move on.
Yeah.
Let them go.
Thank you.
We have a
We
motion.
have to adopt it then? We have to make a motion to
yes,
adopt.
please.
I make a motion that we
I was just in the middle of saying. it.
adopt the revised version of the org chart.
I second that.
Counselor Richards. I'm gonna let Dana do that motion because she was in the midst of doing it. Thank
It's
you.
fine, he can have it. I just. Go ahead.
Any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Downtown, make a motion, we approve resolution 2023-13, which is approving the designated of right of way in downtown. And the dates are, 17 through the 20, pick up a Thursday through Monday.
Sunday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Is there a second?
Second. No, go ahead, David.
Big date on this one. Any other comments? Roll call. Vote.
Mayor Ikorst,
Aye.
acting Mayor Phillips,
Aye.
Counselor Bergner,
Aye.
Counselor Richard,
Aye.
Counselor Kraus.
Aye.
Thank you.
Unfinished business, we have a resolution 2023-18 that she gave to you. And what it identifies is our, well, let me just preface it. We have to give a update report to the state of Minnesota by April, no, to the Treasury by April 31st. April 30th. Of the funds we used since 2022 at this time, so. Resolution that identifies a mixer that we added to the reservoir, in controls, pressure relief valve, and the update of our microphones to use the American Plan funds. And so on the sheet, and I'll update the spreadsheet. It's 2023-18. So basically, it's just officially documenting how we use the funds. That's highlighted in yellow, so. Go ahead.
I make a motion, we adopt resolution number 2023-18.
I'll second that. So that leaves us with $79,877 to use before December 31st, 2024.
Okay,
Roll call, please.
Mayor Ikorst,
Aye.
acting Mayor Phillips,
Aye.
Counselor Bergner,
Aye.
Counselor Richard,
Aye.
Counselor Kraus.
Aye.
Thank you.
New business. Council attendance, Mike. This was.
Mayor and council, I don't have too much. It's very late, but Sonny had put that on and in response to the memo, the attorney-client privilege memo I had drafted. Just wanted to give people the opportunity to ask any questions about what's expected of a council member in terms of remote appearances and how those occur. And then the one issue I didn't really put in the memo, I think is somewhat important at some point to discuss. It doesn't have to be done tonight, but when people are going to appear remotely, what kind of notice is given to Sonny to fit within the requirements and that I've stated in the memo that are in statute. So, how early does Sonny need to get that? Because she's got to publish that in the meeting notice. It's got to specifically state council member X and Y are going to appear remotely from these exact locations. And then once that's public, she has to get that information to publish that. And then once that's published, that has to the members then either have to appear from that exact remote location or in person, or they can't attend the meeting. So that's kind of the rub of it. It's doable. It's just, it takes a little bit of coordination. So I don't need to be involved with that. I just wanted to point that out that, it might be good to help Sonny out a bit. She's got a lot to organize. So having some coordination on that would be a good idea. And then I just can answer any questions about it. If anybody has any, I'm happy to do that.
Is it Zoom only or phone or what is remote?
Phone is not allowed. Phone is not allowed. Cannot appear. If you appear by phone, you're not at the meeting. You're not present at the meeting. So you has to be interactive video technology. And then, so in the statute, that's that's one of the main requirements is all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location can hear and see one another, and can hear all and see all discussion and testimony presented at any location at which at least one member is present. So that's directly from the statute. And that's, I deal with this in other cities, and no, you can't appear by phone. You have to appear by Zoom. And most cities these days, in the old days, this didn't occur because there was no Zoom, right? And now there's Zoom and people are, they do the Supreme Court by Zoom. So
Does
there
this-
you go.
Does this
Yeah.
affect any of our meetings in the past that we have not been following? the
Well,
statute?
it could, but probably not if they're in the remote past. But that's really why this is important. I mean, I wasn't at that last meeting, but when I saw it, I just had to point this out because I think at that point I'm obligated to explain, it's important to do some training. Like I said, in the memo, I don't think anybody intentionally appeared incorrectly. Nobody would do that. I mean, I've been working in Orinoco a long time. It's just the misunderstanding of the rules. So I wanted to be sure that people know the rules and what they are, and then do their best to help Sunny follow the rules. And so, no, yeah, I mean, in theory, it could invalidate prior votes, but probably not. There's a balancing test that the court uses to look at that. It gets complicated, and it really is a case by case analysis. And the main thing they look at is whether the vote would have passed anyway. That's kind of like the controlling,
Can I ask you a question, Mike?
controlling thing. Yeah, sure.
Okay, looking at this, and it goes back to what you did for your letter that you had sent out to us. And that Jim Richards had tried to get in by video to do it, okay, and had notified us ahead of time that he was gonna be on vacation. Everything was done that way. We've had issues, tremendous issues on trying to get in to the system in the past on what's going on. Then if he goes on by phone, does that mean that he's not allowed to do anything when he tried to do it by video and that we were not accepting that here?
With our technology,
Because it's our technology here that we were having issues with.
Oh, sure. No, it's not absolutely. He can't. I mean, you can't appear by phone. There's no exception. So, and it doesn't really matter why. I mean, I'm not like I said, I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just pointing out these are the rules. You got to follow the rules, and that's kind of the risk of it. And that's what kind of I was getting at. My first comment tonight was, well, you can say the location you're going to be at, but then you've got to be there. So, like, for example, you say you're going to be in Texas because you vacation in Texas. I had the council member in another city that always summered or wintered in Texas for like 2 meetings in a row, like January and February. And they can put that location on the meeting agenda, but what if his flight gets canceled, right? What if his flight gets canceled and he can't get down? He's stuck in Kansas City airport or something. He can't appear then because the meeting agenda has already been published with his Texas address. And you can't unpublish the meeting, and then you're stuck, then you can't appear. So that's the problem. Or in your example, there's technology problems and you just can't log on. And that's the risk of it, of doing it. Yeah.
Like,
So
we had Skylar in the past. I mean, he flew and was gone all the time, but he even had to post a sign.
Yeah.
Outside of where he was at, saying that this is happening.
I recommend
So
that.
it's not like this is new.
No.
It's a process that we've had in the past, I know, with different council members. And the technology piece is, technology is tricky, but we had other people on that night.
I don't care. I mean, I tried to get in, so maybe whoever was running it wasn't letting me in because it said waiting. And I tried 3 different times. And so then I finally text Jim.
Yeah, because this
Say, I
screen
can't get in.
was black that night.
Yeah, but I was using that one and I was letting people in.
Yeah,
It's like everybody can see it. It's not like I could have. I don't know if you're accusing me of
We can't
not.
see it over here on this side. I can't see what's over there.
I don't know if it sounds to me like you're accusing me of not letting you in.
No, what I'm saying is
Because I
that
was the one reading it, 'cause Renee wasn't here, but
I don't
we
know
all
who was
had eyes
running.
on that screen because we actually turned it that night, so everybody could see it if you remember.
if you're doing a meeting here, I'm not looking backwards to see what's going on there. That's not it. I think the thing that I was trying to say is that if it's a technology issue, that's the person that's gone trying is one thing. If it's us having a technical issue here, that this is where the problem is. That's where I was wondering for the question.
and I
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter either.
Because
Yeah.
Like that didn't even used to be an option, right? This is all new.
Right. Well, I mean, I'll tell you what, I appear in district court every week, probably 20 to 40 times. And it happens where there's people like they're in Minnesota Correctional Facility, Stillwater, and they're trying to get some guy in prison zoomed in for his court hearing, and it just doesn't work that day.
Right.
And what the court does is they don't hold the hearing, they just reschedule it. And that happens. I mean, I would be willing to say that probably happens once a week at least. So it's not, I don't think there's anything nefarious going on. I just think that sometimes technology doesn't work. And I think the point for you all is when you're going to rely on that technology for your appearance, there's no exceptions where you can just call in by phone. That's not in the law. And the reason why, like, I wouldn't stick my foot in the mud on this, but it could really invalidate a vote. I mean, there's real practical problems with having people vote when they're not present. And you don't want to be doing that. I mean, you just don't want to be doing that as a rule. So that's why I brought it up. I don't think there was any ill will or intent or anything like that. It's important to understand the rules so that moving forward, and you take those risks then, like, and Dana's right that posting the thing on your door wherever you're appearing remotely, I advise that. I mean, if nobody's asked me here, but if anybody asked me, I would advise that you take a photograph with your cell phone of the front door of your house. Or I remember once we did, it's a long time ago, a guy, I believe, rented like one of those communal workspaces, or it might have been like a conference room at a public library, something like that, so that he didn't have to have a sign on his front door of his rental that people could come inside, because it's dangerous. I mean, there's real danger to that, practical issues. So it's not, people do it all the time. They do it legally all the time. I just wanted to make sure people are following the rules. And that's a good question. I mean, if there's a technology issue, can you appear by phone because you made good efforts? No. If your flight gets canceled and you're stuck in the Kansas City airport, can you appear even though the public meeting notice said you were going to be at the Sheraton in Scottsdale, Arizona? No, you can't. So that's the risk of doing it that way.
Yeah,
but
thanks for the clarification. I think, we're elected officials and expect to be at the meeting, so.
Yeah, people want, and I don't want, and the other thing is, I guess the last thing I'll say on it is I would advise if there's a really important issue, you try to be here, and what is a really important issue, like something related to the sewer project, or, take your pick of important issues, try and schedule those if you can, but sometimes you have to take a vote. So you're really putting all your eggs in one basket. Like if it's a variance and it's the 119th day on 120 days, and you knew Council Member Kraus was going to be absent, and then Council Member Bergner was going to appear by Zoom, and then for whatever reason she can't appear, and then you can't even get a quorum, and you're going to grant that, so there's issues like that. You got to think about practical issues when you do it. And that's why it's important to communicate that to the administrator as soon as you can, so that, you get the situation where somebody dies, like your mother who lives in Florida passes away and you have to leave, obviously I would think Sunny would try and accommodate that by redoing the meeting notice to add the new location if there's enough time to do that. But I think I've talked enough. I mean, you get the idea. Just work together to try.
The other question I have, so you've got to have the IT department, which is you guys over there. At least 4 hours prior to the meeting, check the connections. Is that going to be on where you'd have that hooked up to Zoom 4 hours prior to the meeting?
On the test, yeah. And I think just to take any accusations out of it from now on, I will no longer be admitting people. So if you're not here, I'll just let Sunny go ahead and do that.
And I want to be clear,
I don't like
Dana.
how that came out.
Well, I
and-
don't like how it came out with you also, but I wasn't accusing you.
Well, you
Just
said
as I'm
whoever
sure
was
you weren't
running it
accusing
wasn't
me,
letting me
right?
in. That's what your words were. You said whoever was running it maybe wasn't letting me in.
Well, I
was the
said
one
maybe
running.
that was an option, just like you weren't accusing me, right? Of not trying to
Okay,
get
let's
in,
just,
let's
think we've had
just be
enough.
clear.
comments on both parties, I guess.
So does
I
that
see
does that
two-
sound okay to you guys?
I see two takeaways. One, be at the meetings. You're at risk of not, it's your responsibility to be here. If you are going to be gone, you need to talk to Sunny. You can't rely on anybody else to let you in. You got to talk to Sunny to make sure she's aware of how you're communicating. But I think we need to.
And
Really?
then last,
Zoom is gone. Not Zoom is gone, but Zoom is there, but I think we need to, it's not like we had when we had COVID. It's totally different now.
and lastly, if for whatever reason you can't appear, don't vote, because that can screw things up. So if you can't make it there, don't call in and vote. I mean,
Right.
it might not matter. It might be irrelevant, but somebody who wants to challenge the validity of that vote could use that as a basis to challenge the validity of it. So do your best to be there remotely or otherwise. And if you can't be there, you're not technically at the meeting then. So.
Okay. Next one is LMC training and
I'll keep you
Sunny?
updated on that. It's coming up. I just don't have a date yet, and so I'll just keep you posted on it.
so we have a lot of new people on EDA.
Yeah.
5 of them more. Planning and zoning has a couple new members, 1 new member. So it's just an overall training about ethics, open meeting laws. Just a general baseline, how we're going to operate, continue to operate, and make those aware that are new how we operate. So we'll wait for Sunny to get a date on that. Discussion. This is a memo that's in your packet, I believe.
It is.
So we have a person that has some acres that wants to develop, and he's approached Stantec. And Sunny, if you want to lead the conversation.
And it's really not so much specific to Mr. Pearson's development as much as it is the broader discussion on how we want to, as a city, handle those situations when Stantec is our city engineer. Or it could be, somebody wants to use Mike, but he's our city attorney, or Phil. He's our city planner at this point. So it's kind of like, how do we want to handle those residents that also see an advantage of perhaps using the expertise of those people without creating a conflict of interest? And in his email, Joe has cited, 3 different options that they've used in the past. And just bring it for discussion to council. And Mike, did you have any thoughts, or Joe, if you wanted to speak to that?
Well, yeah, my comment is, this issue just came up as we met with the property owner talking about their development, and they see some efficiencies in having us do that work. I don't want to have any issues with the city or the council or any conflicts of interest. I'm bringing it forward. Different people handle this different ways. There are pros and cons on both sides. I'm just trying to be transparent and ask you how you want me to handle this. If you want Stantec to be involved in the work, we'll happily do that. If you don't, we'll walk away and not be involved, with the exception of representing solely the city in the process of reviewing that stuff. So I'm just, I guess, bringing the issue up because it was, I was approached by, one of the property owners, and
It's tough to have you work on both sides of the desk.
I can see that. That's why I am standing here,
Full time.
So this was sent on February 28th. Has there been any updates since then?
Is he expecting an answer by a certain date, or was that even entered in the conversation?
See that.
It's a bit ago, so I'm just wondering where we're at now and what's,
I have had no additional conversations. I know that he was gonna meet with. The property owner was gonna meet with city staff. Did he meet with you, Sonny, recently? Like, no? Anyway, I've kind of just been waiting for some direction, so.
sounds like we need to give this a think.
I thought you met with him Monday, or did you not? Because I thought there was. Excuse me, no, I thought there was some dialogue that you were meeting with him Sunday or Monday, and then you were gonna give Joe and I and yourself an update.
I think
Maybe I got my Joes mixed up.
I think he did say something about connecting with me, but I haven't heard him.
Okay, maybe you just did that, maybe with him driving that connection, but he didn't do it.
Yeah.
Maybe-
He did send me an email saying something like that, but I never heard, so maybe, obviously you never connected, so that's where it's at.
Okay. Of course, I was going. Where's the 5.5 acres?
It's on the east side of Riverwood Hills. It's essentially a farmstead by Third Avenue.
You go down Third Avenue past the data center.
Oh, okay.
If you take the first left into his property is right there in that corner, northwest corner. And a barn, several buildings, outbuildings.
Okay.
If there's no time, if we, this is, you've shared your thoughts with the council. If you want to table it, bring it back in May, give it some thought. We can do that too.
What is the address? I just want to double check on it, or don't we have it?
I don't,
Whatever,
Yes,
I can
that's
show
fine,
you if you wanna.
it's fine, I think I know where it is, I just wanted to.
Mike, do you have any comment? Recommendation?
Well, I don't have any recommendations. It's come up before, and there's some standard ways to deal with conflicts of interest. I would just need to know more about the project, honestly, to know if it's even the type of a conflict that could be waived. I mean, it's not a legal, it's not a, lawyers have professional ethics that we have to follow. I've seen it done before, and then I've seen other times where cities request that the engineer not do that, or, not engage the other side. So it kind of depends on the facts and the level of services that are going to be needed and that kind of thing.
Couldn't it be across the board though, kind of a standard?
Consistent.
Yeah, consistent, like not depending on each individual.
Well, right.
situation.
Well,
Yeah.
the city council could certainly take that position. The last time it came up, they said absolutely not. And then it wasn't Stantec, it was a different firm, and then they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So that is one option, and there's multiple options. The other option is the city can hire a different engineer for this project. And then the other option is they can just allow Stantec to represent both sides. I remember the last time this came up, the issue was it wasn't the local engineer. It wasn't like the Joe Palin equivalent. It was a very large engineering firm, and they were going to have engineers from a different part of the state represent this party, but they're in the same firm. And so that was the issue. That, like, issues like that can change what you might want to do. So I just don't know anything about it. So no, I don't have any thoughts.
Okay, we're tabling.
Table it. Yeah.
We're,
Okay, a couple
do
quick,
we need action for that, the table? You want
It was
to
just
come back? Or
it was just a
kind of-
dis-
Okay.
I don't know what you're tabling. If there's no vote, then I don't think you need to
Okay.
table it.
So,
a couple of quick actions on support documentation or resolutions for some legislation, Senate File 3087, which is an amendment for appropriation for Transportation Management Organization, TMO. Been on our agendas in the past and get a little more defined. And now there's a bill for $350,000 to help appropriate the development of a TMO for the counties that's listed in the resolution. So it's getting some wheels on it, but the appropriation it's a very modest resolution or modest amount for the TMO. And so I make a motion, we approve resolution 2023-14.
Second.
We'll see where it goes. I'm not sure where the transportation bill is at right now, but hopefully this appropriation, the amendment will be included. And I've given plenty addresses of where to email the Senate file as well as the next one, the House file to our local representatives, which is Senator Liz Bolden and Representative Kim Hicks. We'll roll call vote unless there's a comment. Go ahead.
Mayor Ikorst,
Aye.
acting Mayor Phillips,
Aye.
Counselor Bergner,
Aye.
Counselor Richards,
Aye.
Counselor Crowe.
Aye.
Next is resolution 2023-15, which is a resolution supporting House File 1285 to remove income restrictions for TIFs in non-metropolitan counties of Minnesota, greater Minnesota. These two resolutions are supported by the League of Minnesota Cities. Again, it's just to help with funding and it's not income restriction for which could affect us in the future with our development and something that we should support in my mind. So I make a motion, we approve resolution 2023-15.
Second.
Any other comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Mayor Ikorst,
Aye.
acting Mayor Phillips,
Aye.
Counselor Bergner,
Aye.
Counselor Richards,
Aye.
Counselor Crowe.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is our discussion about meeting etiquette. There's to speak to that.
What about 2023-16? We already talked about that.
We'll get that and do
That's
the next
not,
consent.
that's next on the agenda.
Yeah.
Nothing to do.
So item F, under new business, meeting etiquette. This was an item that Counselor Phillips and Counselor Richards wanted added to the agenda. And Mike is here, so let's
Great.
go for it.
So the reason I wanted this added to the agenda, I mean, we saw a good display of it tonight at tonight's meeting. I mean, it was behavior that we shouldn't have to have inflicted upon us. I don't think it's right that we allow residents to come in and publicly shame council members or the mayor. I mean, that, or publicly humiliate, I mean, it's just wrong. And I mean, we don't see this person at council meetings on a regular basis. And to come in and do that, I think it was wrong. And I would like us to have some guidelines in public forum. So this doesn't happen. And I think it was appropriate for people like that to be removed when they're acting like that. So I would suggest that we put together some guidelines for when people want to come and address the council, that there's guidelines in terms of how they behave and what they say in terms of calling out a specific council person or persons. I think it's wrong. That's not what we're about. I don't know. if you
Yeah,
wanna add anything.
that's where I was coming from too. I know that, what happened last month in our last meeting, things got carried away. And, there were repercussions afterwards too, and, an article coming up in the Post Bulletin, you know, about what went on here in this, and it's not our newspaper that we have of choice was kind of, I think, off base for that to happen, without a doubt. And with that, there were many other things that kind of came that I was hearing through the grapevine also, on asking if, council members own property in the city, that if they didn't own property in the city, then they shouldn't be on city council. And I don't think that that's a part of what there is. If you've been a resident in this community and you live in this community for 60 some years, then it shouldn't be a question that you have property. I really don't think that was a part of it. So I think that came out. Also through the grapevine too, I also heard that somebody had made a comment that if you're on this council, that you're not allowed to call LMC and ask them questions. That it has to go through Sunny before you can turn around and call League of Minnesota Cities. And I think that if you're a part of this council, you should have a right to call League of Minnesota Cities. So those are, again, whether it's not or true or not, but those are the things that I had heard, and they all came about because of what transpired at the last meeting, and I just don't think those are right either.
Okay, well, there's a fine line with free speech. And, when a person gets up, you don't know what they're gonna say. So we have a 3-minute time limit, that's the rule. And, we try to adhere to that as close as we can. But, I think that's.
I understand.
I guess I would rely on Mike's comment or Sunny to respond to any. And I'm not sure what we have in our, I don't think we have anything in our personnel policy, because that's relative to employees, mainly, not general public.
I would just like to say, I would love it if we all treat each other with more respect. But unfortunately in today's climate, school board meetings are a great example of the stuff that elected public officials are having to take, and that's unfortunately part of signing up for this. I've sat here right where Joe is and had to plug my ear because somebody was yelling so loud, and we didn't have them escorted out of the meeting. So
They probably weren't.
With personal attack is a total different thing.
I've personally been attacked by, I'm not gonna call the person out, but I can pull up the meeting. We've been attacked for breaking, for Gold Rush breaking law, or breaking, what am I trying to say? Open meeting laws. We had papers handed to us about it, and I've had my own personal Facebook, Citizens of Orinoco Facebook comments handed to me during meetings by somebody at the public forum. So this isn't new. And I think we all need to have pretty tough skin to do this. Unfortunately, we shouldn't have to, but we do.
Yeah,
And we can't limit, that's just free speech. I'm definitely not going to support somebody not having free speech, even if it's something I don't want to hear.
Well, if you look at it too, and if you go to the city of Rochester and you go to what they're doing for their chamber, anybody that wants to get up and speak publicly at the chamber during the open meeting laws.
Chamber?
For city council.
Okay. Sorry.
When you turn around and do that, you have to in advance give in writing what you're going to talk about, and it's up to city council to say, yes, we're going to hear them, or no, we're not going to hear them. And that's what Rochester does. So there's other cities that have rules and regulations that go into it. And I'm not saying we need to go to that point, but it's something that's there. You know, and this, you know,
There's some validity to that. I would argue though that most people live here because they don't want to live in Rochester and so they don't maybe want to adopt those rules, you know what I mean? But I think it's worth maybe looking into some other cities.
Can
I
can
would
just
love, yeah,
give some input? Yeah, that's what you need to do. I mean, there's all kinds of rules that other cities impose for public forum. Um, I'll just make an editorial comment. Last meeting is not the only time the public forum has got it way out of hand.
right.
It's got way out of hand in Orinoco with personal attacks many times in the past. And I haven't said anything because I'm not the meeting chair.
Mhm.
So what, if you really want to look seriously at it, I recommend that you just get some examples of what other cities have for their public forum. By the way, you don't even need to have a public forum. It's not required. There's other methods of doing it. You could do quarterly public forums so that they don't have them at every meeting, but you have them once every 3 months for like a pre-council meeting for an hour. And that's all it is. So you kind of consolidated them into one time. I've not heard of that Rochester practice, but I'd be interested in taking a look at it. I think it's a good idea. Frankly, I think what the gyms are bringing up is not a bad idea. I think you should, kind of do some investigation of what other cities have.
Mhm.
Take a look at those, have Sunny make a recommendation or maybe summarize, boil it down to a couple of recommendations. Free speech is definitely a part of this. Anytime you open up a public forum, whether it's a Facebook page, which has come up in other cities, once they open their Facebook page up to comments, once you do that, you cannot censor those comments. You basically have to allow them all or none. And so what most cities do is they do not allow comments on their Facebook page, which is what the right thing to do is, I think. But this public forum, the mayor is right. You don't know what they're going to say. So if you actually want to enforce rules, they have to be pretty specific, like in terms of censorship rules, and then you have to apply them. Then the key is universal application. And this is where it's really tough. I personally think it's really tough to do that in a public forum. It's just really, really tough for a meeting chair to stop certain individuals from speaking when they break the rules. And what's the recourse? I mean, it's a difficult thing to police. In theory, it sounds great, and I agree that you need to address it, I think. But in practice, actually policing it is another thing. And then when you don't police it equally, that's when you run into really big problems.
I'm a little worried about that. I'm a little worried about that, frankly. What happened tonight is a little concerning.
But I think the first step is just to do some investigation. I don't think we're going to solve it tonight. I think you need to get and see what, get the published policies from some other cities. A lot of cities don't have anything and they just kind of let it go and they just have a time limit. But, then you're letting people say whatever they want. And
But Mike,
that's just not good. That could get pretty bad. I don't mean to make light of it, but it's people say whatever they want to say. And I, certainly at minimum rules of decorum, foul language shouldn't be,
or
permitted.
discriminatory comments.
And Mike, could I ask a question about just if someone is to be escorted out, who is to give that direction?
Well, that's a super complicated question. And it begs the question, can you even kick somebody out of a public meeting?
Well, I mean, that kind of happened tonight. So that's why I'm saying I'm a little concerned. And I think that we probably need to, maybe Sunny and Rylan can follow up with you on what that looks like if someone comes back, that's a little concerning.
It's happened. I mean, in the past, it's been a long time, but in the past, we have had to trespass people.
Sure.
It is rare, though. It is very rare. And it's for a real public safety concern,
Sure.
There is.
Let's be clear, the person didn't get kicked out. They were told they had to step away from the podium. They were.
Yeah.
From the
podium. I don't think we need to get it.
I want to make when someone, especially who it was, says discriminatory statements against the council, against the white males on council, I take great offense to it. And I think they need to be shut down immediately. Because your freedom of speech should not allow you to be discriminatory. Because if that was the case, we could all do that, you know. I
Well,
could say
it's
when she starts speaking, and that would be okay.
it's nuanced and complicated. And I think it's not going to get solved tonight, but I do agree. I mean, it's when you sent that email to Sunny about rules of decorum, I mean, that's a very broad topic or etiquette. I mean, there's a lot of cities that have all kinds of etiquette rules about all kinds of things, not just the public forum. And that might be overkill for a small city. A lot of small cities don't have that, but certainly adopting some, you know, some public forum rules would, and you have some. I mean, I was reading them here as you guys were talking, and no employee's name may be used. Do not expect action from the council. You know, just tightening it up a little bit might be, you know.
And what's your take on newspaper articles?
Well, I don't read the paper.
In terms of city council, because right away we saw an article come out in the Post Bulletin, and it didn't sound like it came from Sunny. And it was quoting one council member's comments. Should, as a best practice, should it come from City Hall, one point of contact?
Well, what do you mean it come from? I mean, once you say things at a public meeting, the newspaper can publish those things. Right? I mean, I don't have control over what the newspaper does, and they can do what they want. And I think they were just quoting what was said at the meeting. So.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I
I
didn't
would
read the
do-
Post Bulletin article. Can someone explain?
Well, somebody had to give it to them because they had a picture of me in my car lot. And they knew all about the whole meeting, so somebody.
I got a
Oh,
call
sure.
from Zumbro News Record, but I didn't get a call. from the Post Bulletin.
This is it. If you want, I can give it.
Well, I've read it. I read that one because Sonny sent it to me after it happened. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's freedom of the press. They're going to report on a meeting like this, and I guess I'm not understanding.
There were comments from somebody that was in the city council on it.
Oh, can we just stop pretending? And if you have some, just, you can, I know that, I mean, I hate this side talk. If you want to speak to me and ask me if I called, you can.
You see side talk, what do you mean?
Well, instead of you're saying someone in council, so it's clearly not the three of you, because you're all on the same path, so it's me or Ryland, and I did not call the Post Bulletin. Like I said, I got a phone call at work from the News Record the next day. I answered the questions. I never contacted the Post Bulletin.
Well, and again, I didn't say that you did, okay?
Well, but that's what I mean
said
by
that
the
there were
side.
comments that were made that came from city council person. Okay, in this, okay, but that didn't say that you did it, okay, but
But like, they're
that's all
on,
I can do is
they're
just
on
make those
YouTube.
comments, which are true. You know,
So what
Yeah. This is a big topic. I don't mean to cut you off, but my view of this, I'm not going to give any other opinion on it, but obviously you all have freedom of speech, you know, individually as you know, yourselves, you're not limited as to what the five of you on council can say. I mean, you can have your own private Facebook accounts and say what you like, you know. What you can't do is you can't disclose privileged information that you have, or violate the Data Practices Act, or violate any terms of a city contract that you're a party to. You know, you can't commit specific ethics rules, but obviously, you know, members of Congress say whatever they like all the time. And, you know, you're on the council, you can go talk to whatever. I mean, they get interviewed by the press all the time. I don't see any issue with that. Any ethics issues or anything like that. I mean, that's just free speech. So, you know, if that's what you're getting at, like council members should be limited to talking to the press. I don't think that exists.
No, I was thinking one point of contact for the paper, you know, if it's going to be published. You know, for instance, coming right from Signal, you know, if there's something.
Say no comment.
Yeah,
but there's
Well-
people in the city that can give a tip or that can call, you know what I mean? Like, that's how news works. Years ago, we had this well, Jim, you're probably the only, well, Carl, we had this crazy fire hydrant situation. And I called, it's a long story, but I called the paper. And then they started calling the city, and real quick, that fire hydrant situation changed. It was a situation between Jack and the city. I don't know if you remember that, but real quick, that changed. So city people do it all the time. Like as a citizen, private citizen, I reached out to the newspaper about topics before. I truly have not done that, and I don't really care if you believe me or not, but unfortunately, I'm a too truthful of a person to lie, but I don't know.
Why don't we just start with the meeting decorum rules and try and put together some options, or Sonny can put together some choices and just start there.
Yeah. And I think the simplest rule, just be decent to one another,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
Okay,
Be kind.
consent agenda, but we have some resolutions within the consent agenda, so we can't really,
Right, so those need to
Motion.
be removed.
huh,
Those need to be removed from,
the consent.
yes.
I make a motion, we,
Oh, I was wondering, I'm like. So we need to make
we missed one motion on.
Number 3 is number 4.
Oh, items 3 and 4, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I make a motion, we remove items 3 and 4 from consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's just take care of these items first. Item number 3 is a resolution 2023-16. A resolution consenting to amendments to the city's senior housing revenue refunding note. We've done in the past. Wyndham Shorewood Campus LLC Project Series 2015A. And in the now therefores, we approve the modification, authorize the execution of the Allonge. Did we have a second for that motion? Dana? Did you second? Yeah, I think she did.
Oh, I seconded moving them. I second this one too.
And there's something comes up every year, so let's do somebody comment, let me just call the roll.
Mayor Ashford,
Aye.
Acting Mayor Phillips.
Can I just make one quick comment? Right, when we do these resolutions, I just appreciate to have them before we go into a meeting. That we can at least read them and know ahead of time what the stuff is, okay?
We had this one because I asked her to explain it to me like I was a banker, not a nurse, or no, a nurse, not a banker. That's what I said. I'm like, explain this to me like I'm a nurse, not a banker.
I did not see it in my packet of stuff that there was, or.
They were all in
Yeah.
there.
In the packet, yeah.
I was very confused by it.
They were just not in our format. So what you have for me is just putting it on our format. What you had, a cover memo from Taft Law.
We didn't have the vote counting.
I didn't have any of the vote, yeah, I had nothing on that, that's what I was trying to say, so. Yeah, that's all, that's my only comment, so go ahead.
He was in there, didn't have a resolution number on it.
No,
He didn't have the ballot, didn't have the file.
no. I'll go aye.
Oh, you said aye, sorry.
Yes.
Counselor Bergner.
Aye.
Counselor Richards.
Aye.
Counselor Crowe.
Aye.
Thank you.
Hey,
Hey, Joe.
Item number 4.
Good night, Joe.
Good night, Joe.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Item number 4 is resolution 2023B amending to align, and what this is a
So.
11B was the terms, yes.
Right, so there are two, so there is the addition of 5B, which kind of gives the background of why we needed to change the slate. And that one you didn't have, I apologize. Did they send that out last night?
So I make a motion, we approve resolution 2023-11B.
I have a question on that too. Okay, and maybe,
Second first. Second.
oh, I want to ask. a question.
second.
Okay.
Second for discussion.
Discussion is, a question that there is on terms, so, let's say that, Dana is not, goes up for reelection and you're not reelected, Ryland, you've got here at 2028 for you. Okay, why is it 2028? Because if you're no longer mayor, then it should be the acting mayor that comes in, would pick the mayor and the city council person.
No.
No,
No,
no, it would be the mayor, whoever is elected mayor.
well,
And that's why we probably should have looked at 05 first, because
Council member on it. Ryland. His term ending.
yeah,
05B was statute, following state statute.
right. So if we could look at that one first. I know you've already made them.
I'll resend that
That's a
motion.
Kind of, yeah,
Creation of.
okay.
which I have no problem on.
Yeah,
allowing
so I think
that.
that's
So-
what we're.
So I had misunderstood what it was to that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, that's just my question.
I make a motion, we approve resolution 2023-05B.
Second.
There's some clarification of the term for the statute, so.
Right, and that was my error, it made sense to me that they were aligned with, the terms that were ending for both, the mayor and Councilor Bergner, but statutorily, you have to have 2 in the 6-year slot, not the 2-year slot, so.
Okay, roll call.
Mayor Ikorst,
Aye.
Vice Mayor, Acting Mayor Phillips, Councilor Bergner.
Aye.
Councilor Richards,
Aye.
Councilor Kraus,
Hey,
thank you.
why is the acting mayor?
That's.
They were-
Terminology change was all.
From vice to acting.
Right.
And now we have resolution 2023-11B, so we make a motion.
Yeah, and that one is just more than anything else, so that based on what we had to do, in 05B to make it statutorily compliant. This is the mayor up to another 6-year slot. And again, because statutorily, he makes the appointments, you approve them, you've already approved the slate before. So it's just a matter of that one adjustment.
I make a motion, we approve 2023-11B.
Second.
Any discussion? This is just a amendment, so just a majority vote, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? Approved.
Thank you.
We have a consent agenda motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Phillips. All in favor? Signify by saying aye.
I,
Aye. Make a motion, meeting adjourned at 10:25.
Second. Oh, we
Out
almost
the
made it
door.
4 hours again.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
I.
Approved.
Nothing else.
Thank you all. Oh, Mike's gone already.
Thanks for your time. Boy, we gotta give under 3 hours to get somehow.
Yeah, this is.